Detroit Trump on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
In his new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, Dinesh D'Souza brings the new Middle East into focus with a message of perseverance, faith, and a shared global destiny.
Could the fate of the world, of humanity itself, be somehow tied to this place?
At long last, we have peace in the Middle East.
Israel and Christians are coming together in a way they have never been before since the book of Acts.
But is this the end of Hamas and radical Islam? What does the Bible say?
We have to become fighters in the Spirit for God. We don't accept what the enemy wants to do with our culture. We don't accept what he wants to do with the nation. If we keep fighting, we win.
Powerful, prophetic, a must-see movie based on Jonathan Cahn's international bestseller. The Dragon's Prophecy combines history and scripture with faith, justice, and renewal. The Dragon's Prophecy, a new film by Dinesh D'Souza. Now available on Amazon, YouTube, and iTunes.
You need a construction company, but who?
Call CrossCom.
A construction company you can trust that shares your Christian and conservative values. For decades, CrossCom has been doing work in Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana, and Wisconsin. Roofs, siding, windows, doors, gutters, basically everything for your home or business, even solar. Quality work and professional services that make you feel great about your decision to work with CrossCom.
Call CrossCom.
630-871-5500. Give them a chance to earn your business. If your repairs are due to storm, fire, or flood damage, you need to
call CrossCom.
They're licensed public adjusters. They work for you, not the insurance company. CrossCom will work to get you the money you deserve, the maximum payout. They know the insurance companies and how to deal with them. They win for you.
Call CrossCom.
CrossCom Construction and Public Adjusters.
This is Dan Lights with CrossCom. You can trust us with your home or business for high-quality work and fair prices. It's the only way we do business.
630-871-5500. CrossComPublicAdjusters.com.
Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
Making the switch to a new communications and IT company may seem like a big ordeal, but if you're not getting the reliable support, consistent internet, and secure solutions your company needs, meet Access One, your local Chicagoland IT experts. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for over 30 years from our headquarters right here in the West Loop. Whether it's VoIP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One is here for you. Serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore, Access One is Chicago-owned and Chicago-run, a trusted IT partner for law firms, clinics, tech startups to manufacturers. We'll make the switch easier than you think. Let's talk. Call 800-804-8333 or visit accessoneInc.com. Rated top 5% in customer satisfaction and a Better Business Bureau A+ rated business. That's accessoneInc.com. Tech made personal, locally.
Hey, I'm Steve Wyatt, and I want to invite you to the Wyatt Matters show, which airs every Sunday on this station. You can expect lively discussion and heartfelt reflection that will both entertain and inspire you. And if we do it right, maybe deliver some genuine laughter as well. We talk about not only what matters, but also why it matters.
Wyatt Matters. Sunday morning at 6 on AM 560. The Answer.
Jenny McGuire is the fresh, bold, unapologetic voice of common sense, constitutional values, and conservative principles. With her sharp wit, she'll tackle the issues that matter most: faith, family, and freedom. Join her and featured guests each week on the Unsafe Space radio show, heard Saturday evening at 7 right here on AM 560 The Answer. And follow Jenny on Facebook at The Unsafe Space with Jenny McGuire.
Hey there, Chicagoland. Jeff here from Jeff Buys Your House. For many homeowners, winter can feel overwhelming. There's big bills, unexpected situations, or the stress of owning a home you no longer want. But here's the good news. You don't need to wait for warmer weather to make a change. At Jeff Buys Your House, we make selling simple. Even in the heart of winter, you don't need to fix anything, do any cleaning, and you certainly don't need to worry about unpredictable buyers. We buy houses as is, and you choose the closing date that works best for you. We've made the home selling process easy and stress-free for nearly 2 decades. That's why homeowners trust us, and why we've earned over 400 Google reviews and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. As a veteran-owned business, we handle everything with integrity and care. So if winter is weighing on you, we are here to help lighten the load. Call us at 630-895-9530. That's 630-895-9530 or jeffbuysyourhouse.com and get your offer today.
Don't miss Destination Retirement with Robert Kuhn every Sunday from 11 to 12. Robert has a different way of looking at retirement from most financial advisors and is happy to share his ideas with you every week. So don't miss what he has to say. Destination Retirement with Robert Kuhn, Sunday mornings from 11 to 12 on AM 560 The Answer.
Hey there, Chicagoland. Jeff here from Jeff Buys Your House. For many homeowners, winter can feel overwhelming. There's big bills, unexpected situations, or the stress of owning a home you no longer want. But here's the good news. You don't need to wait for warmer weather to make a change. At Jeff Buys Your House, we make selling simple. Even in the heart of winter, you don't need to fix anything, do any cleaning, and you certainly don't need to worry about unpredictable buyers. We buy houses as is, and you choose the closing date that works best for you. We've made the home selling process easy and stress-free for nearly 2 decades. That's why homeowners trust us, and why we've earned over 400 Google reviews and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. As a veteran-owned business, we handle everything with integrity and care. So if winter is weighing on you, we are here to help lighten the load. Call us at 630-895-9530. That's 630-895-9530 or jeffbuysyourhouse.com and get your offer today.
Hello, can I have your attention, please? My name is Hugh McKenzie, and I'm a devout listener of The Answer. They have partnered with Food for the Poor consistently for the last few years. In the past, I've always wanted to participate, but unfortunately never had the extra cash at the end of the year to do so. But last weekend, I received the mail, and there was a bonus check for $2,500 from Mack Truck for selling commercial vehicles. I decided that I was all in. As I mentioned, I sell commercial vehicles. Everything from Mack, Volvo, Hino, Isuzu, new and used. I've been selling for over 30 years in the Chicagoland market. Call me at 630-918-9534 or check me out on the web. Google my name, Hugh McKenzie, and Hugh is spelled H-U-G-H, McKenzie is spelled M-C-K-E-N-T-Y. All right, thank you very much for your time.
To contact Hugh McKenzie, search Hugh McKenzie on LinkedIn or call 630-918-9534. That's 630-918-9534.
Making the switch to a new communications and IT company may seem like a big ordeal, but if you're not getting the reliable support, consistent internet, and secure solutions your company needs, meet Access One, your local Chicagoland IT experts. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for over 30 years from our headquarters right here in the West Loop. Whether it's VoIP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One is here for you. Serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore, Access One is Chicago-owned and Chicago-run, a trusted IT partner for law firms, clinics, tech startups to manufacturers. We'll make the switch easier than you think. Let's talk. Call 800-804-8333 or visit accessoneInc.com. Rated top 5% in customer satisfaction and a Better Business Bureau A+ rated business. That's accessoneInc.com. Tech made personal, locally.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be mostly sunny and breezy with a high of 63. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 29. Tomorrow will be cloudy and much colder with intermittent snow and flurries in the afternoon, accumulating a coating to an inch. The high will reach 36 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. I want to start on this Friday with a happy note. It's not really my sweet spot, but it is Dennis Prager's, our friend Dennis Prager. And he's penned this op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that people must hear and read. I know many people don't subscribe to the Journal, so I want to offer this up. I know our listeners have great affinity for Dennis Prager, as they should. I'll post this on X, too. The piece that Prager wrote is entitled, Mostly Paralyzed But Happy to Be Alive. I've talked before over the last year about this terrible accident that befell Dennis and why he's not on the radio. Dennis Prager writes, I wrote a book called Happiness is a Serious Problem in 1998, which stressed two important insights. First, happiness isn't to be awaited, but must be pursued. Second, expectations are a major impediment to happiness. They undermine the greatest source of happiness, which is gratitude. The more you expect, the less grateful you will be for what you have. The less you expect, the more grateful. The Prager corollary. In 100 or so talks I've given on happiness, I said, well, I have good reason to assume I will be healthy tomorrow. I do not expect to be. I may have a heart attack or discover a cancerous lump, or I may have a stroke or some other life-threatening event or illness. As a result, I walk around every day with gratitude for my continued health. On November 12, 2024, everything I wrote was put to the test. I had a catastrophic fall at home, which left me paralyzed from the shoulders down. The doctor at the hospital told my wife and son I should be put on palliative care to make my final days as painless as possible. Truth be told, the fall should have killed me. And just a pause there, I did not know. I had heard what happened, of course. Some of it I couldn't disclose at the time out of respect for Dennis, but I did not know that the doctor said to the family to put him on palliative care, that it was that life-threatening. I knew it was obviously a catastrophic injury, but that's a real revelation. Dennis goes on. Picking up, truth be told, the fall should have killed me, he writes. When it happened, my wife was in our upstairs bedroom, adjacent to the bathroom. Usually, she would already be downstairs. Had she not been there to see me fall and summon help, I would have been dead within minutes as I landed in a position that cut off my breathing. Tested as they were, none of my views on happiness changed. They enabled me to forestall depression. I still believe in happiness. I still believe happiness isn't to be awaited, but must be pursued. And because I have almost no expectations, I'm not battling traumatic disappointment. I've experienced considerable pain, both physical and emotional. I've gone from broadcasting a daily radio show, writing a weekly column, flying to deliver at least one lecture a week, and taking at least one listener cruise a year, to a bedridden life. And doing our cigar nights, too, which were always just a great joy because of Dennis's presence and listeners who showed up, too. These monumental changes arrived in a split second, he writes, and I've replayed the fall in my mind countless times. My condition has reinforced what matters most in my life, my wife, children, and grandchildren, my friends, my mind, and my mission to deliver ideas that better people's lives. Why haven't my views on happiness changed? Because I've never believed happiness is solely a function of what happens to us. Catastrophic events will affect us, but even in dire circumstances, we can and should pursue happiness. It would be easy for me to spend my time mourning, and who would blame me if I did? But my belief that happiness needs to be pursued benefits me and those around me. While my friends and family sympathize with my situation, they still prefer to be around me when I'm happier. Life's traumas come in many forms: the loss of a child, divorce, drug addiction, illness, financial disaster, and depression. It's human to mourn one situation, but it's our responsibility to fight our way back to a happy life, or at least make the most of our situation. Life is too precious and too short for self-pity, even under trying circumstances. Whenever I'm tempted to consider the unfairness, quote unquote, of my condition, I remind myself of the ways in which I've been unfairly fortunate all my life. Even at the moment of my fall, I had the good fortune of my wife's presence, ensuring I received medical attention as soon as possible. It's also remarkable, given that I sustained a hard blow to the back of my head, that I've been able to speak and maintain my mental faculties. Every doctor who has commented on my condition has described my ability to speak as miraculous. Quote. None of them were particularly religious. From the day I regained consciousness, I realized I had only 3 alternatives: death, depression, or perseverance. Since I don't want to die and I don't want to be depressed, my choice is obvious. I will continue enjoying my family and friends, resume broadcasting, write books and columns, and produce more Prager U videos. Dennis Prager. Wonderful piece, great perspective, and I know, Dennis obviously did the Happiness Hour as part of his show, and so this is center cut for him, and he has the wisdom of a rabbi when it comes to matters of the human condition, and so I'm not surprised that he would offer such a thoughtful and cogent perspective on his condition, and it's great, obviously, to continue to be able to enjoy Dennis's thinking and speaking and work product. I mean, really one of the greats, one of the people in terms of in radio and media, one of the most robust intellects, one of the people who has influenced me, who's somebody I look to and say, there is a model to follow. And so wanted to take the opportunity. I love the perspective too on sort of the why me question. It reminds me of, completely sort of different arena, but I reference it all the time because it stuck with me ever since I saw the interview. Dan Quisenberry, the great Kansas City Royals reliever. He was the submariner, you may remember. After he stopped playing, it was reported, and it wasn't that long after he stopped playing because he had a long career, but like in his, I don't remember exactly how old he was, but he was young. It was mid-40s maybe. He got diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And very simply, he was asked, "Did you ever ask yourself, why me?" And he says, it's natural to do that initially, but then when you sit back and say, why not me? Because I wouldn't wish this on anyone. So I'm not special in the sense that somebody should have this rather than me. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. Just a great perspective. It's very commonsensical. It's very logical. But when you're dealing with these sorts of travails, it's sometimes tough to be sober and logical. And this is why Dennis is such a treasure. Mary Kay, Oakbrook, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hi, good morning, Dan. Yeah, I always felt like the Happiness Hour was the best hour in national radio. I turned it on every day, and it was inspiring. I did get a chance to talk to Dennis at the cigar night, the last one he did, I believe, and just all around great man, inspiration. I know I have a tendency to talk about my personal stuff, but my sister-in-law suffered a stroke a year ago, and I try really, she's in the kind of why me depression type thing and has been for a while. So I try to read Dennis's books to her and try, that why not me? These things, that the why not me is always a question. It's always the question, Dan. God doesn't pick and choose. I mean, there's, you know what I'm trying to say. God,
yeah, he gives us the crosses he knows we can bear, kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. And she's a godly woman, and so Dennis says we spent a lot of time talking about trying to get her out of this funk and get her back to a regular life, like Dennis is doing. Dennis is doing it. So I can't wait to read the article this morning because it'll help me get through the day.
I'll thanks for the call, Mary Kay. I'll cheat the Wall Street Journal a little bit. I'll cut and paste it and post that on X. Dan Proft, Chicago's Morning Answer.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Do you feel embarrassed, trapped, maybe even ashamed just because you own a timeshare? Well, I'm here to tell you you're not alone. Chuck McDowell here, the timeshare cancellation guy. I get over 3,000 complaints a week from all kinds of folks that feel the same way you do. Honest people, teachers, veterans, grandparents, all losing sleep over a timeshare they can't get rid of. That's why 15 years ago, I founded Wesley Financial Group to help people take their lives back. Today, I run Wesley with my 2 sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we would want our own family to be treated. That mindset has helped us cancel over 50,000 timeshares from people just like you. So if you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-894-3737. That's 800-894-3737. 800-894-3737.
AM 560. The Answer.
All right, coming up at 5:38. I know we had the AM 560 GOP gubernatorial debate last night, but so chime in on that if you listened. Where do you stand on the governor's race? We're just about 3 weeks out, March 17th. We'll discuss at 5:38, and I'll pour over some of the back and forth that occurred in the debate earlier this week on Fox Chicago. Now let's check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 30 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Kane in the QC Kinetics newsroom. An Illinois House committee has passed a mega project bill about a Chicago Bears stadium project, but several legislators and an advocacy group warn that bill could lead to a meteoric rise in property tax bills. Jim Talamonte has more.
State Rep Cam Buckner said House Bill 910 authorizes a mega project assessment freeze and allows municipalities to negotiate incentive agreements with mega project developers.
So instead of letting a mega project blow up a tax base in unpredictable ways or letting negotiations happen in the shadows, this bill creates a clean structure.
Brian Costin of Americans for Prosperity Illinois said it's a property tax shift bill.
It would shift liability from mega project developers directly onto homeowners.
Several lawmakers said the mega project bill could also apply to battery farms and data centers. I'm Jim Talamonte.
This report is a service of Think It Up. Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classroom today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Larry Elder explains how prices come down.
GDP growth last quarter, 4.4%, 4.3%. People's incomes are rising faster than inflation. Everything is driven by gas prices. Everything has to be transported. So when people are paying far less now for gas than they were 5 years ago, it is a huge, huge boost to the wallet. And I think Trump deserves a lot of praise for this.
The Larry Elder Show, weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer.
You need to be tuning into the Retirement Success Blueprint with Michael Stewart, the radio companion to the Amazon best-selling book, Success Blueprint, How to Build the Retirement You Deserve. Each week, Michael shares strategies designed to help reduce market risk through income-generating investments that can provide steady returns. Because if you can avoid a big loss, you don't need to take big risks. Catch the Retirement Success Blueprint with Michael Stewart, Saturday mornings at 10, right here on AM 560 The Answer.
If you're like most Americans nearing retirement with money in a 401k or IRA, then listen carefully. The U.S. dollar is under pressure. Foreign nations are reducing reliance on the dollar, and some analysts are openly warning about the long-term stability of U.S. currency dominance. Whether you call it currency debasement or the collapse of the dollar, the risk is real. And when confidence in the U.S. dollar shifts, gold and silver historically respond. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000 to get your free gold investment kit. You'll also receive a free copy of Ken Rogoff's book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Most American retirement accounts are dramatically dramatically underallocated to precious metals, even as central banks continue buying gold at record levels. Many Americans are rolling over a portion of their retirement savings into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty-free with Advantage Gold. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000. Results vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
Did you know most remodeling mishaps start before construction even begins? Here's something else you should know. At Forever Remodeling, we do things differently. Every kitchen, bathroom, and basement project starts with smart planning, detailed 3D designs, a clear scope of work, and accurate pricing, all sorted out before you get started. No surprises, no stress, just beautiful results. Done right the first time. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, EVER, remodeling.com. And schedule your free in-home consultation today.
Hair Volume from New Nordic will make your hair look thick and healthy. Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and newnordicusa.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be mostly sunny and breezy with a high of 63. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 29. Tomorrow will be cloudy and much colder with intermittent snow and flurries in the afternoon, accumulating a coating to an inch. The high will reach 36. By Sunday, it will be colder with a thick cloud cover and a high of 30. I'm meteorologist Jason Catarina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So, where are you in the governor's race? There is a Republican Senate primary, too, in the open seat being vacated by Sackett Durbin, who's retiring. Don Tracy and this Evans woman, who's come out of nowhere, are running for that seat. I think it's, basically, I think Don Tracy is going to win that going away. The GOP gubernatorial primary is much more uncertain. So where are you on the race between Bailey, Drowski, Heidner, and Mendrick? 312-642-5600 to give us a call or a text on that. As I mentioned, Mike Scott moderated AM 560's debate last night. Earlier in the week, though, the three candidates, Bailey is pursuing a Rose Garden strategy at this point, living off of $50 million in name ID that unfortunately I was party to providing him 4 years ago when he got clobbered by J.B. Pritzker, most of it his own doing, which is why we couldn't do it again, measured and found wanting. The discussion between the three candidates who showed up to the Fox Chicago debate was interesting on a couple of scores. First of all, I mean, if I may, Rick Heidner, the gambling and dope impresario who, trots around calling himself a businessman, he's a complete imposter. And if you hadn't paid attention to this point or you haven't seen an extended version of him, the extended version he presented on Fox Chicago was pretty telling. He's a guy who talks about working with both sides and donating to both sides. Yeah, about the seven figures in political donations he's made, it's about 99% to 1, Dem to Republican, including, as we've mentioned on the show, as you should know by now if you're paying attention, donations to Kim Foxx, Brandon Johnson, Mike Madigan, Ed Burke, and so on and so forth. And his defense to that is, that's just how business is done in Chicago. I'm sorry, and you are running to be a change agent? That's how business is done in Chicago. He also said something that was rather interesting in that Fox Chicago because he's trying to project onto Drowski. He's trying to muddy the waters. Ted's taken money from, wildly successful real business people who live in the city of Chicago, and you pulled a Dem ballot, for example, to vote for Eileen, O'Malley, Madigan, Cullerton, O'Shea, O'Neill, Burke in that primary she was running to face. In the primary she was running to replace, I should say, Kim Foxx, because the primary was the general, basically. So they pull the ballot to get her versus the next Tony Preckwinkle stooge up, that Clayton Harris guy. She wins a close primary. And then their donors, they're quote-unquote Dem donors, because they gave money to Paul Vallis when it came down to Paul Vallis versus Brandon Johnson, the mayor's race, for example. It's a ridiculous assertion. The comparisons are apples to orange groves. But I understand why he needs to muddy the water. He's also suggesting that, Pritzker's at it again with Ted Drowski, really. So Dick Uihlein, one of the largest conservative donors, not just in Illinois, he's the largest, in the country, who was the guy that spent the $50 million on Bailey 4 years ago. And, and conservative candidates going back as far as you want to go back, as far as he's been around and successful in business, which is quite a long time. So he is supporting a candidate, and all these other conservatives who've endorsed him, legislators, pro-life leaders, pro-family leaders, they're all in cahoots with Pritzker because Pritzker's doing it again, what he did last year to try to pick the candidate he want with Drowski. It's interesting because Heidner made a big splash about the money. I mean, and everything he does about his money is splashy. The guy wears more jewelry than Liberace. The only thing missing from his presence on that round table on the Fox Chicago debate was a candelabra. I mean, it's ridiculous, over the top. But anyway. All this, he was going to do this and he's going to do that, and it's got all this spend. He's willing to commit, $5-10 million. He's not spending that kind of money. He has some basic, straw TV buys, which are ineffective and modest. If there's anybody who should be looked at with a jaundiced eye as being a imposter, as being a double agent, and I don't know this, I'm just going by what he said he was going to do and what he's actually doing and how he's behaving. And then you go back, you pull back a little bit into the history, and you say, well, boy, he was in trouble. He was on the precipice of total collapse when he was the subject of a gaming board investigation. And somehow he managed to wriggle off that hook. And then, I believe, sell his stake in Gold Rush for big money and continue on with his other gambling-related interests. And he's tried to get into the dope business, too. I think he was in it with Perry Mandera, who's recently been presented as one of the financiers of Ali G and his mayoral ambitions. And I think Mandera, and not to get too deep in the weeds, but I think then Mandera and Heidner had a falling out, and so their respective sons are doing the dope business thanks to their respective dads. So if there's anyone that should be looked at like, what are you really doing here? When you hear him talk about issues, you don't hear someone who knows particularly what they're talking about. You hear somebody that contradicts themselves. He may know about video poker machines and marijuana dispensaries, but he doesn't know about conservative policy solutions to the salient issues of the day. I'll tell you that. And if you watch it and you don't pick up on that, then, well, I don't know what to tell you. Heidner, the Dems can't wait to talk to him when he, quote unquote, gets elected.
You've owned Gold Rush Gaming since 2012, one of the largest operators of video gaming terminals in the state. The Sun-Times profile showed that you've given $715,000 in donations, many of them to politicians, Democratic politicians, some who have been convicted, Mike Madigan, Martin Sandoval, others like John Cullerton, and $25,000 to Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Why are you seeking the Republican nomination if you've given all of this money to Democrats over the years?
Well, I'm a businessman in Illinois. I've been a businessman in Illinois for almost 50 years. And, you know, I work with both sides of the aisle. I always have. You know, you talk about Brandon Johnson. You know, I gave $100,000 to Paul Vallis. And, you know, Paul didn't win. And then someone reached out to me, a very good friend, and said, Rick, you know, I'm trying to help him retire his debt. Would you be interested? And it was a difficult decision for me to make, but my good friend asked me if I would help. So I did. And, you know, I went to a function where he was at, and I did have things that I wanted to talk to him about Chicago. I've got about 30 buildings in Chicago. I obviously would like to bring gaming to Chicago, which now obviously it's finally come in. I worked on that for 12 years. You know, I've always worked with both sides. I'll always be able to work with both sides. I'm very well respected by the Democrats. I'm very well respected by the Republicans, and I think it's a huge asset. You know, I have other people here who think that you ever work with a Democrat, well, good luck being the governor and not working with Democrats. So, you know, they have the majority, and I'm going to have an open door policy, and they can't wait to come in and talk to me, to be honest with you.
And there was also...
I've talked to many of them since I've gone to run, and they've actually called me and thanked me for running.
Yeah, I bet they have. Yeah, I bet they have called you and thanked you for running. Yeah, I bet they can't wait to talk to you. These are inadvertent admissions. The Brandon Johnson donation, and others like it, but Brandon Johnson obviously is particularly noxious. So let me understand something. A friend came to you and said, hey, Rick, would you give $25,000 to Brandon Johnson? You know what a conservative would say to that? Are you out of your mind? If a friend came to me, Rick, and said, hey, Dan, can you throw some money, some support Brandon Johnson's way? I would say no. But I know that's not how you do business in Chicago, in the state of Illinois. I work with both sides. There's only one side because of people like you, Rick. Work with both sides. Throwaway lines. You have to work with Democrats. No kidding. Throwaway lines. And how do you work with them? You pay them to play, to enrich yourself, to protect them, and everybody's happy. I mean, except the taxpayers. Remember them, Rick? I'd love to get my hands on this guy in a debate. And he's so smarmy and smug about his ignorance, which just really layers it on for me. If somebody came to me, a friend comes to you and asks you to do something that is inane, that ostensibly now you say you wouldn't do, or you only did because it was a favor for a friend. Right. You find that persuasive? You find that compelling? It's just doing business. And but the thing you never hear from Rick Heidner say, but when I get elected governor, we're going to change the way business is done in Illinois. Because, of course, he's not. He's not going to get elected, number one. This has nothing to do with trying to derail Rick Heidner. Rick Heidner's candidacy is not going anywhere. He's irrelevant to me as a candidate, except to the extent that he provides a good example of the bad example. And when I hear, and I've heard on this show from some listeners, you know, they got a Rick Heidner mail piece, the one mail piece he did, or they it happened upon one of the few ads that he is actually running. Oh yeah, that Rick Heidner. Yeah, he's spouting reheated talking points from the good old GOP. Oh yeah, that Rick Heidner, he's different. Oh, he's different. Yeah. Unfortunately, you have a percentage of the Republican primary electorate here, despite what has happened over the last 20 years. I would say 50 years, that still doesn't get it. I mean, that still is the Rick Heidner and people backing him are counting on to be pigeons and split the non-Bailey vote for people who recognize that Bailey is box office poison. And if you want to get pounded again, then you put Bailey up as your nominee. And you'll get destroyed in the suburbs and thus destroyed statewide. And then everybody will be scratching their heads. What do we need to do to win a statewide election? Then Heidner and Drowski got into it, this attempt by Heidner to muddy the water, as I mentioned.
Rick has built a massive business, massive wealth, but the difference would be that, we talk about the Democrats and donations. That's what I would call, in a way, pay-to-play politics, which is you benefit from doing deals with Democrats, with Republicans.
I never asked them to do anything. Don't accuse me of that.
No, you get...
Make sure you tell everybody, Ted, that you're taking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from Democrats.
I'll talk about that in a minute.
So that you can be... So I can't be the candidate.
All right, well,
because trust me, they don't want me to be the candidate.
I thought they did want you to be the candidate.
I'll talk about that, but let me be clear. A Republican candidate, a conservative Republican candidate, can't be giving money to Brandon Johnson and Kim Foxx, right? These are people who hate police. They're decarcerationists. You can't imagine somebody giving to them, so that's a big deal. And then the gaming industry is also a very tough industry too, right? It preys on the working class. You don't see gaming halls in Glencoe and Gwinnett. You see them in a lot of poor places. So we have to really talk about the gaming industry.
Well, let's talk about it. It's legal. Okay, I got in it. I was in the amusement business.
It's legal, but maybe we should have
1978.
Maybe we should have a referendum on it, though. Maybe we should take it to the people because it's a tough industry.
Go ahead and do that, and you can lose another $1 billion a year for the state.
To open it up here in Chicago too, to have more terminals.
Yeah, Rick. Oh, first of all, they don't want me to win. I thought they did want you to win. I thought they thanked you for running. So which is it, Rick? Don't you love somebody who, when asked about their business, says, first of all, I want you to know it's legal? Is that how you talk about your business? Yeah, it's legal. I think Ted's right. There should be a statewide referendum on it because it is completely out of control, as you've heard me rail against the ubiquity of video poker and other machines all over that are a blight on so many middle and lower income suburbs, not to mention its predatory government. That's what Rick's in. That's how Rick's made his money. Predatory government, gaming, and drugs, the mob economy. But it's legal, Dan. I know it's legal. Is that the end of the discussion or the beginning of it? First of all, it's legal. Oh, and we're going to lose $1 billion in revenue if we restrict gambling. First of all, no, we're not. Secondly, so that's your idea. That's your big idea. Number one, that's a revenue source for you to operate legitimate state functions. That's how you want to finance it. Sin taxes. That's responsible. Number two, this is about funding a government that takes too much and spends even more than it takes. I'm not trying to come up with more ways to take people's money and send it to Springfield, Rick, but you are. And by the way, the other attribute of a business, first, A, it's legal and it throws off some tax money. Well, good, Rick, then why don't we legalize prostitution? Would you support that? That would throw off some tax money. What else should we legalize as long as it meets the threshold of throwing off tax money for the state? He's got all of the outcomes wrong because he starts from phony premises, does Diamond Rick Heidner. Greg in Rogers Park.
Hi, Dan. Dan, I remember back when you had Illinois Rising, and Ted would be on there with you in many sessions. He was brilliant in the way he explains things, and I'm going to vote for him. In fact, here in Rogers Park, I think I'm the only one in Rogers Park with a Drowski sign in my window and supporting him. And I just think that if he got on the stage with JB, he would eat him apart, and people would really see an intelligent, well-thought-of man that understands Illinois politics, policy, financing, safety, and issues. I think he's really the perfect candidate. That's the Jeannie Ives we've had for governor in a long time.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I mean, he presents contrast, and he's a candidate you can rally behind that is not going to embarrass you substantively or personally. We haven't had one of those in a while either. as a nominee. Bob, Buffalo Grove.
Good morning, Dan. Always a pleasure talking to you. Missed you last night. I saw a lot of the other staff there, but I'm glad you heard the audio of the debate. I'm a backer of Drowski, but you had a point on Mendrick a little bit. He was really good in projecting legal issues and the policing. Another thing you have to mention.
Yeah. As soon as Jim Mendrick updates us on that mass shooting in Willowbrook, I'm willing to entertain it. Do we have any update on that? It's only been 3 years.
And then the other one is where was Bailey? Got to emphasize he was a no-show.
Yeah, Rose Garden strategy, as I mentioned. Thanks for the call. We're trying to stop the Frankenstein that we created. I'm talking about myself and other people who supported Bailey. Jeannie Ives feels the same way last go-around, supporting Ted. Joe, Hoffman Estates.
Good morning, Dan. Pay-to-play Rick is going to stay in, gather some supporters, and then once he drops out, he's going to wait to see which horse is going to win the race and then put his support behind him so he can keep his gambling empire going. The guy's worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
He won't spend a penny. It goes to show you.
Yeah, now he is. That's right. Thanks for the call, Joe. And that's why I'm saying now, what's on the other end for Rick when he does his duty here and tries to confuse as many GOP primary voters as he can to help Bailey get out of the primary once again, and Pritzker will feast on him once again. I mean, just a reminder on Bailey. I didn't really even care. It's not even worth talking about whether or not you like him or don't like him or whatever. When Bruce, just a reminder, when Bruce Rauner lost to Pritzker by 15 points in 2018, that may have been the largest spread. I mean, it's the largest spread for a Republican losing. Jim Edgar beat Don Clark Netsch by a bigger margin. But that is the largest spread for a Republican loss in my lifetime, I believe. Rauner losing to Pritzker by 15 points in 2018 when he all but gave up over the summer, you remember, after Jeannie Ives almost and should have beaten him in the primary. Another missed opportunity that I've discussed before. Lost to Pritzker by 15 points in 2018. He still outperformed Bailey's 2022 vote totals by 18% in DuPage, by 20% in Suburban Cook, and 24% in Lake County. He outperformed Bailey by 12 points in Kane County and 6 points in McHenry County. Pritzker beat Bailey in the suburbs by 343,000 votes versus the 222,000 he beat Rauner by in 2018 when he slaughtered Rauner by 15 points. That's all you really need to know if you have any interest in competing, much less winning. You cannot have those kind of numbers coming out of the suburbs and win a statewide election as a Republican in Illinois. So you can talk to me all you want about downstate and Southern Illinois and Bailey's base down there, and so, well, such as it is, divided after he took on Boston, lost in a primary for Congress. But you can talk to me all you want about that. Those numbers don't work. That math doesn't even come close to adding up. And it will just ensure, if he's the nominee, the blowout win, a further diminishment of the party in Suburban Cook and the Collars, where we have to make our bones, where we have to at least start clawing back into a competitive posture. You're not going to have a race in Illinois if Bailey escapes. All it will do is enable the businessman like Diamond Rick to continue fleecing the state and degrading it in the process. Your choice. Coming up at 6:06, Loyola, Evanston Township, and Chewbacca. I'll give you the Karnak answer. 6:06. It's now 6 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
First it was Hillary. Bill Clinton's next.
I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. The former president will be questioned today under oath about the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation. Hillary Clinton told the Republican-led House Oversight Committee she never met Epstein.
I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices. So it's on the record numerous times.
Fox's Chad Pergram's in Chappaqua, New York, the Clintons' hometown, where these depositions are taking place.
The committee questioned how Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell used the connections to hide illegal activities. Jeffrey Epstein donated to the Clinton Foundation.
The former president appears in the Epstein files, and so does the current president.
Democrats believe that Bill Clinton's appearance could compel the committee to call President Trump.
Vice President Vance will meet today with Oman's foreign minister the day after he was the mediator in the latest round of U.S.-Iran talks. Iran's foreign minister says,
during these several long and very intensive hours, we made good progress and very seriously entered into the elements of a possible agreement, both in the nuclear field and in the area of sanctions.
President Trump's demanding Iran scale back its nuclear program, or he could take action like last year with a big U.S. military buildup in the region. Meanwhile, as Fox's Jonathan Savage reports, another conflict flares up between Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Our patience has now run out, warns Pakistan's Defense Minister Khawaja Mohammad Asif. The two sides have launched cross-border strikes, and Pakistan now considers the conflict open war. The ongoing dispute concerns alleged Afghan support for armed groups in Pakistan.
President Trump will go to Corpus Christi, Texas today to campaign for Republicans ahead of Tuesday primaries, the day after New York City's mayor went to the White House.
Meeting with President Trump about housing. Mamdani posted a photo of him and President Trump in the Oval Office, writing, "I'm looking forward to building more housing in New York City."
That's Fox's Jared Halpern. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 30 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Illinois lawmakers are weighing legislation that would require public schools to share all evidence used to suspend or expel a student with that student's parents or guardians before a disciplinary hearing. Katrina Barker has the story.
Senate Bill 2876, sponsored by Senator Terry Bryant, addresses what she calls a growing problem of parents being denied access to evidence used in disciplining their children. Bryant said the issue came to her attention after learning that several grade school students had been suspended based on video evidence that their parents were not allowed to see.
And then they're all talking about it around the school, but when the parents asked questions about it and asked to see the video, they were not allowed to see the video.
According to Bryant, the incident involved students shadowboxing in a school gym. While several students were involved, only some were disciplined after one student was struck. The video was widely circulated in the school community, she said, but parents were told they could not view it due to privacy concerns involving other students.
So I started asking around and found out that happens from fairly frequently.
I'm Katrina Barker.
A Chicago Officer of Inspector General audit has found a lack of clarity and transparency in the city's 311 non-emergency request process. According to the OIG report, 311's public-facing platforms do not provide users with clear information on the overall process, request statuses, and work order timeframes. In response, the Office of Emergency Management and Communication has acknowledged the need for better communication to the public and more consistent training and communication within city departments. This report is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Think fall mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
This week on Capitol Hill is the best way to get informed on everything going on with Congress. Hosted by Tony Perkins and the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
What they're doing instead is trying to make a political point, and they're going to inflict real pain because the other agencies that are directly affected by these shenanigans are the agencies that are charged with keeping Americans safe.
Stay informed and become a regular listener. This week on Capitol Hill. Sundays at 1 on AM 560. The Answer.
If you or someone you love are getting high quotes for dental implants, visit almostfreeteeth.com today. With a medical PPO insurance plan, it's possible to save 90% off on average to be able to smile again. Check if you qualify now at almostfreeteeth.com.
Wealth Health Radio. The biggest fears that people have is, do I have enough money to retire? Retirement doesn't have to be complicated. To make sure that you're going through retirement with confidence. Learn principles of income planning. There's a lot of different facets that you need to take into consideration when you're retiring. Tune into Wealth Health Radio with Joe Murphy, noon to 1 p.m. Sundays on AM 560, The Answer.
When you can no longer handle your own home, Hearthstone Assisted Living at the Lutheran Home in Arlington Heights is here to help make life easier. Experience upscale living with comprehensive health services. We offer fine dining, engaging activities, available chaplains, weekly worship services, and quality amenities including a bistro, expansive library, and general store. For a limited time, mention WYLL for an additional discount. Call 847-595-5024 or visit LutheranLifeCommunities.org.
Hey, it's Mike Gallagher, hoping you'll join me on the unforgettable Gulf of America cruise happening in November of 2026. Imagine this: turquoise waters, white sand beaches, incredible food, insightful conversations about the future of America. Scott Jennings and I will be your hosts. We'll dive into the issues shaping America as we cruise through some of the most stunning destinations while honoring the 250th anniversary of our nation. Book your cabin today. Text the word cruise to 94878. Text cruise to 94878 or visit MikeOnline.com.
At AlmostFreeTeeth.com, they're dedicated to making smiles great again. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average to get a beautiful dental implant-supported smile. Check if you qualify right now at AlmostFreeTeeth.com.
If you're over 65 and struggling with knee pain, Joint Relief Institute offers a guaranteed way to treat it. It's non-surgical and often covered by Medicare and private insurance. It's JRI's Joint Arthritis Treatment, knee lubrication placement that's so accurate, it's 100% guaranteed and can relieve your knee and shoulder pain in 10 minutes or less. Book your risk-free consultation today and get back to walking, golfing, pickleball to cycling without pain or medication. Call 708-315-6800. Meet the provider, get an x-ray and joint consultation. Why wait? JRI has treated over 30,000 Chicagoans and performed over 400,000 procedures. You could be next. Over 5,000 five-star Google reviews can't be wrong.
Stop living in pain. Call the Joint Relief Institute today, 708-315-6800, or visit jointreliefinstitute.com. Locations in Glenview, Oak Brook, and Orland Park. That's 708-315-6800 for the Joint Relief Institute. Medicare and most private insurance plans accepted.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Jane Klaus. So far, all your expressways are looking good. On this Friday morning, it's just 20 minutes in from O'Hare to downtown. The reverse trip, 25 back out to the big airport. You've got your typical slow pocket on the inbound Stevenson between Ashland and the on-ramp to the inbound Ryan. DuSable Lakeshore Drive and your tollway is still moving along fine. This report is a service of Team Hochberg. They've helped thousands of AM 560 listeners with the best rates and service. Let Team Hochberg help you by visiting 56david.com or call 855-563-2843. That's 56david.com. Atlantic Coast Mortgage Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 613114. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will be mostly sunny and breezy with a high of 63. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 29. Tomorrow will be cloudy and much colder with intermittent snow and flurries in the afternoon, accumulating a coating to an inch. The high will reach 36. By Sunday, it will be colder with a thick cloud cover and a high of 30. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Sports and politics and sports and politics and sports and politics and intersection. Arrogance and ignorance, arrogance, ignorance, and arrogance and ignorance. Intersection.
All right, as I mentioned, Loyola Academy, Evanston Township High School, and Chewbacca. Blowing up in the envelope there, finishing my Karnak. What is an IHSA girls basketball playoff game? So we have controversy here. And of course, as we have often discussed, when the incidents of actual racism are de minimis, the race hustlers will manufacture them because they have to keep the hustle going. This may be such a case. You decide. The entire Loyola Academy student section was removed during the girls' basketball game this week when a spectator shouted what is being characterized, of course, by the Chicago Press Corps as a racist remark. That's literally CBS. Spectator shouted a racist remark at a student athlete. This was Tuesday night during the sectional girls game, in the state tournament. Evanston and Loyola. I guess Loyola has perhaps the best girls team in the state. They're a favorite to win state, is what I understand from those who know. And they beat Evanston. This occurred at Maine South in Park Ridge. The Evanston Township High School brass said a spectator seated in the Loyola student section directed a racist, dehumanizing remark at one of our student athletes. I've never heard of such a thing happening at a sporting event. And that they added, of course, to the Panjan drums at Evanston, they're committed to protecting their students and confronting racism wherever it occurs. When you've got a honky Catholic school in Wilmette and a more diverse government school in Evanston. So it all sets up real nice, for the press corps, doesn't it? And you've maybe seen the headlines every week in the social media posts: racial slur, racist remark. Some more details here. Loyola was winning the game going away, and they did. There was a foul with a minute 20 left in the game. Evanston player, that shall not be named, was on the free throw line shooting two. While she was shooting the first free throw, a fan from the Loyola student section hollered Chewbacca, allegedly. Before the second free throw was administered, the official nearest the scorer's table stopped the game, said, "We're not having this." This is an eyewitness account. One eyewitness account. They're often unreliable and perhaps agenda-laden. The official said, "We're not having this." He went to get game personnel and tried to find out who said it. None of the students would say who said it, so he threw the entire student section out of the gym, told them to get out. I turned around, this first person account. Everybody is going to use this as an opportunity to congratulate themselves for their opposition to racism or even the appearance of it. This guy turned around and covered the rest of the game, which went without incident, so forth. And so now you're having, what are they teaching students about racism at Loyola? What will be the punishment for the student once identified? And I've heard who the student was. I'm not going to name that person. Should Loyola Academy be disqualified from the tournament altogether? Even though the players, coaches had nothing to do with the incident. So you're getting a lot of finger wagging and shaming of Loyola Academy. What is going on at Loyola Academy? Also, there's this, and I heard this from a reliable source too. The Loyola coach, who's a dude, apparently called the Evanston coach, who's a chick, a bitch at some point. Like he mumbled under his breath, but it was loud enough that people heard it in the gym. So there's another layer to this. Here's the Evanston Township High School Post. you may want to put your hip waders on. The ETHS athletic department has been in contact with Loyola Academy's athletic department. Maybe they should dispatch Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. And we are aligned in our commitment to addressing this incident, ensuring accountability and continued education, and creating an environment where all participants can compete with respect and belonging. ETHS is a proudly diverse school community. We are unwavering our commitment to protecting our students, confronting racism wherever it occurs, and upholding standards of inclusion and sportsmanship within the central suburban IHSA and beyond. Wonderful. Wonderful. Except that there's some additional backstory, and if any parents were at the game, I'd love to hear from you about this. Take some more first-person accounts. So the real story, as I understand it, from those that were at the game, by the way, is that the Evanston Township girls were pretty aggressive in their fouling. They're channeling, the Pistons bad boys of yore. And the game was out of reach, and it started to get a little chippy. And the Loyola coach is telling his players not to take the bait, not to respond, because he didn't want to fight. He didn't want one of his players to get suspended and not be able to play in the next playoff game because, as I said, Loyola State favorite, don't take the bait. It was essentially the admonition. And the suggestion is that the Evanston girls were, sort of committing hard fouls on purpose and trying to provoke, which is why the coach said something along the lines of, what is wrong with this bitch, referring to the Evanston coach, because what is she doing, allowing her players to, or perhaps coaching them to commit these hard fouls and try to instigate some sort of physical confrontation with the girls, particularly when the game is well out of reach. So that's the backdrop to it. And so one or more of the students started heckling, basically seeing the same things that I'm describing adults at the game saw. And so one of them said something. I'll take it. I wasn't there. I'll take it that he said Chewbacca. There's some doubt if he said something, if the students said something else. But it was, in the sense of being it wasn't race related. It was in the sense of the behavior, right? Being a big beast out there, I think was the point, not because it was race related. And I don't even know. I honestly don't know. And I should have asked if the girl that was at the free throw line when the Chewbacca moniker was uttered was black or white. I don't know. But the point was, it wasn't intended to be race-based. It was intended to be behavior-based. So there's a big difference. Jose at Midway.
Yeah, growing up, we had a Chewbacca. It was somebody who was big and physical. Them trying to make it a race issue is ridiculous. And this other person, I think I heard the coach call her a bitch. Come on, man, give it a break. We're beyond this. Want to cancel everybody? Stop it already. I'll listen.
Thanks for the call. Right. Right. We're beyond this. Stop it already. Yeah, that's basically my attitude. But even if that happened, and I think the coach did mutter that, and he muttered it probably louder than he wanted to. So what? So what? You don't think this happens at like every level of competition? And I'm not saying it's because it happens, it should be sanctioned and celebrated. I'm not saying that. But I mean, so hey, everybody dial it down and so forth. But I mean, to make this some, region-wide controversy where Loyola now has to bring in DEI consultants or something like this, and Evanston's girls are under siege, and I mean, come on. the things get a little. I mean, could you imagine? Could you at Bennett? I remember some of the students. It wasn't not me because I was so well behaved, obviously. But you would, and this is not exactly unique to Bennett, but it was like if we're losing, and Bennett had a good basketball program, so it's pretty rare, and still does. Gene Heiskamp's done a great job, but you've heard that, like you're losing to whatever. So let's say we were losing to Naperville North, and you hear that somebody starts the, it's all right, it's okay, you're going to work for us someday, cheer or something like that. Now this would be like, that's classist. Oh my God, yeah. There would be Facebook groups and parent meetings and an institution day for the teachers and social workers to help people get through the trauma of being suggesting that you're going to work for a Bennett grad because you're a Naperville North grad. I'm just making that up, by the way, in terms of Bennett Naperville. I'm just using an example. But all this stuff, I mean, honestly, you've never heard jeers. A player's never been, a particular player for particular behavior, good or bad, like you're trying to get in somebody's head who's, putting 30 on you or something like that. I mean, that doesn't happen routinely. Bada. I know that was, I think that was banned before I even got out of Little League because we were already, down the sensitivity slide. John in Bridgeport.
Yeah, just a quick story for you. Yesterday, Homewood Flossmoor played Marist in basketball, and they had to stop game for security to remove a Homewood Flossmoor fan who got up and started calling the Marist kids a bunch of white female dogs and white privilege, mother effers, and that type of thing. So when the DEI people come and consultants, I hope they stop by Homewood Flossmoor just to do a little consulting there. Just saying.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right. Fair is fair. I mean, so it's like it's unfortunate in both directions, and you take the kid aside to knock it off. But the kid at HF is probably, what do you mean knock it off? That's what I learned in class. Text from 630. Come on, Dan, don't you know Wookiee lives matter? It's true. Hate has no home in any galaxy, near or far away. Yes, thank you, Dave from Geneva. Maybe they should retain your services at Loyola. Michael, Southside.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you so much for taking my call. There's one thing you can always count on. The Chicago media will always pounce on the latest alleged racial drama.
Oh, yeah.
High school sporting event.
Oh, yeah.
And I can remember back in the late 90s, the Sun-Times reported that the Brother Rice's fans yelled racist taunts at a basketball team during a game.
Yeah.
It turned out that the reporter who wrote the story was not even at the game.
Yeah, well, why do you need to be? If you're going to invent it, I'm not even going to bother to go. I can write this story from home, right?
Exactly.
That's great. Thanks for the call, Michael. Text from 630. Are you sure it wasn't Teen Wolf? That kid had handles. Yeah, there's no question about it. Maybe there was a Teen Wolf sighting. An underrated Michael J. Fox film, by the way. I rather enjoyed that. Nice little coming-of-age film. Pretty cute. And he did have handles. Whoever actually was in, I don't know who actually was in the Teen Wolf uniform, because I don't think Michael J. Fox had those skills on the court. He did have handles. And that was before, the era of CGI and those sorts of enhancements, before Grok could just invent Teen Wolf. George, Naperville.
Yes, Dan, this is why we have reparations in Evanston, to take care of this mess.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, George. Mark in Oak Lawn.
Dan, thanks for taking my call. We got a lot of good referees out there, but there are some they're not professional referees. So, they're going to make calls sometimes, and sometimes, they let the administrators get the better of them. But, we've lost our sense of humor, Dan. There's no sense of humor. I remember playing at Brother Rice in St. Lawrence would yell at us. You know what they'd say? They'd say, "What comes out of a Chinaman's butt?" Rice. I mean, Where's our sense of humor, Dan? We've lost it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember playing at like the Proviso holiday tournament and some, tough gyms to play in, particularly if you were not, if you didn't have fans travel, if you were not one of the favor teams. I mean, not one of the Proviso East in particular, but and just other tough places to play. Obviously conference games. You get whether it was the West Suburban when I started Bennett or the East Suburban by the time I ended Bennett. I mean, you should have that stuff happen. And, kids get creative and pointed. Kids are good at making fun of people. And, I don't, and I thought we're supposed to treat, women and men. These are just student athletes. So, heckling and unruly fans is part of it. It's not an endorsement. I'm not trying to raise up a generation of Robin Fickers. It's a little Washington Bullets reference for those of you scoring at home. Pretty impressive, if I do say so myself, and I did. But, I mean, to make it this, federal case, so to speak. And by the way, there's this underlying issue that I raised as well, which is the level of sportsmanship or lack thereof that was going on. The way that Evanston's girls and maybe the coach were approaching their blowout loss. There's also that. We talk about, running up the score. Well, on the other side of it, you're getting rolled over because you run into a better team. And what, you're trying to injure some of their players on the way out of the state tournament? Is that sportsmanship? Anybody want to address that issue? If what I heard from very, very reliable sources who know a lot about sports, particularly at the high school level. Anybody want to address that? No, that's not even going to be acknowledged, of course. Tony in Riverside.
Good morning, Dan. It's like this morning I'm saddened because the focus is that these hockey players decided to sell their souls and go to the White House. But do we no longer teach our children the adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me? I mean...
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Everybody's so sensitive.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, right. Well, who's in charge of the schools? People that are going to remake the world into this heaven on earth if everybody just consolidates their views along identitarian lines and reads from the script produced by the central office. Yeah, I mean, it's that Orwellian utopia that they're ushering in. By the way, I remind me, I saw this a couple weeks ago, but I couldn't fit it in. But I guess I'll fit it in here. There's a new heckling technique that is gaining steam to heckle free throw shooters in basketball games, and it's actually really funny. But I hadn't been aware of this because I think it's mostly at the high school level. Although one of the bites I'm about to play was actually at a Xavier game, college basketball. But the new heckling technique is for a guy to yell in sort of like an affected female voice, "That's my man," right before a player shoots a free throw. And this is like a mashup of several instances of this. And I'm not saying it works every time, but every time, but there's all the clips that you're about to hear. The guy missed the free throw every time, including at the Xavier game.
That's my man.
That's my man. All right, babe.
That's good, clean fun. I would be, if I heard some dude yell, "That's my man," when I was at the free throw line, I would take notice of that. That would break my concentration, particularly when it pierces through the gym like that. So, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be racist and according to IHSA standards. I can't believe he threw the entire student section out of the game, too, by the way. What is that? Bob in Naperville.
Yeah, I just wanted to share this story. When I was a kid, I played baseball. When you got to be older, Babe Ruth age, your name was announced, and there was a guy whose last name was Gay, and, the kids up in the booth, the next batter is Gay, chuckle, stuff like that. But, could you imagine that today? Of course, there was probably some 15-year-old umping back then, and he couldn't have cared less. But it's just amazing how far we've come and how damn sensitive people are. Great show. Keep up the good work.
Thanks for the call, Bob. Yeah, I mean, there's been some great gay athletes. I mean, like Rudy Gay, who played at UConn. Dan Prof, Chicago's Morning Answer.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
If you're over 65 and struggling with knee pain, Joint Relief Institute offers a guaranteed way to treat it. It's non-surgical and often covered by Medicare and private insurance. It's JRI's Joint Arthritis Treatment, knee lubrication placement that's so accurate, it's 100% guaranteed and can relieve your knee and shoulder pain in 10 minutes or less. Book your risk-free consultation today and get back to walking, golfing, pickleball to cycling without pain or medication. Call 708-315-6800. Meet the provider, get an x-ray and joint consultation. Why wait? JRI has treated over 30,000 Chicagoans and performed over 400,000 procedures. You could be next. Over 5,000 five-star Google reviews can't be wrong.
Stop living in pain. Call the Joint Relief Institute today, 708-315-6800, or visit jointreliefinstitute.com. Locations in Glenview, Oak Brook, and Orland Park. That's 708-315-6800 for the Joint Relief Institute. Medicare and most private insurance plans accepted.
In his new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, Dinesh D'Souza brings the new Middle East into focus.
Could the fate of the world, of humanity itself, be somehow tied to this place?
At long last, we have peace in the Middle East.
Israel and Christians are coming together in a way they have never been before.
But is this the end of Hamas and radical Islam? The Dragon's Prophecy is powerful, prophetic, a must-see movie. Now available on Amazon, YouTube, and iTunes.
The following is a paid political announcement.
This is Kevin Coyne, Chairman of the DuPage County GOP. I am inviting you to our Lincoln Day dinner on Friday, February 27th at Abington Banquets in Glen Ellen. We will feature keynote speaker and national political commentator Tudor Dixon. Enjoy an evening of camaraderie, great food, and Republican unity. Sponsorship packages are available. Purchase tickets today at DuPageGOP.com. Paid for by DuPage County Republican Central Committee.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 6:36, we're going to talk to Jason Johnson, former Deputy Commissioner of the Baltimore PD, currently President of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. We'll talk law and order, as I mentioned, but also he wants the president to pardon some officers, and we'll have him make his case about that case at 6:36. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 34 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the QC Kinetics newsroom. The new stadium saga continues for the Chicago Bears. Illinois House Public Finance Committee advanced a bill yesterday that would freeze property taxes for mega projects like a Bears stadium in Arlington Heights. However, the House of Representatives didn't vote on the measure, and they won't be meeting again in Springfield until March 18th. Meanwhile, in Indiana, Governor Mike Braun signed a bill that creates the framework to build a new stadium in Hammond, Indiana. Afterwards, the Bears released a statement saying that they're grateful to the leadership reflected by Governor Braun for signing that bill. Heads up for commuters as work is set to begin next week on a new Chicago Street interchange at I-80. The work is a part of ongoing efforts to rebuild I-80 in Minooka, Joliet, and New Lenox. The Chicago Street interchange is the last of 6 to be rebuilt along the project corridor. Construction will be carried out in several stages, but initially will require lane closures in both directions of Chicago Street between McDonough Street and Doris Avenue. News is a service of American Beam and Steel, structural repair and licensed contractors for your home or business. Search for American Beam and Steel online to schedule your consultation directly with the owner, Mark. American Beam and Steel. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
If you listen to the mainstream media and the Democrats, you'd think it was a sin to be black and conservative. Well, John Anthony blows up that perception every week on Black and Right. Join John tomorrow afternoon at 4 when he pushes back against the left and its regressive, progressive agenda that tries to dictate how people should think or feel about politics. Listen to Black and Right tomorrow afternoon at 4, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
If you owe the IRS or state $10,000 or more, the stress can feel crushing. You may even worry about getting misled by big national tax companies that care more about quotas than people. That's exactly why ClearPath Tax Strategies exists. We're local, not some 800 number 3 states away. We're an independent team of experienced CPAs and attorneys who share your conservative values and believe that every tax problem has a real solution, one that works for you. We will fight to get you the lowest possible settlement, but nothing changes until you take the first step. Schedule your free consultation today and finally understand your options. Call 262-786-4442. That's 262-786-4442 or visit cptstrategies.com. ClearPath Tax Strategies. No judgment, just results. Take back your future and get the IRS and state off your back.
Wesley is a truck driver.
I drive a truck, and I love what I do.
A truck driver with IRS troubles.
They told me I owed them $43,000.
It got really bad.
Quite a few letters in the mail. They were talking about wage garnishment, coming after my house, my car. Yeah, they don't play around. I seriously thought that I was going to lose everything.
One sleepless night, Wesley finally made a call to Optima Tax Relief at 2 a.m.
Kind of figured I'd get a machine, but I didn't. I actually got to talk to an actual person in the middle of the night.
He found just what he was looking for.
Oh, they were great people. You need a team of people that know what they're doing. Optima Tax, they know what they're doing.
Optima Tax Relief came through with flying colors.
I saved an incredible amount of money. Happy don't even come close. I was absolutely overjoyed.
Take Wesley's advice.
If you're in any kind of trouble with the IRS, call Optima Tax Relief. Don't trust anybody else.
Call Optima for a free consultation. Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Mike Lindell and the MyPillow employees want to thank you for your great support this past year. They want to make 2026 the best year ever. So to thank you, they are giving you free shipping on your entire order and wholesale pricing. So they are bringing back the mega sale. For example, the classic MyPillows, regularly $49.98, now only $14.98. Turn any mattress into the best mattress ever with the Made in the USA MyPillow My Mattress Topper and save up to $100. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets for as low as $29.98 or the 6-pack towel set for only $34.98. To get the best specials ever, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. These offers won't last long, so call 800-489-0201 or go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY. Order now and your entire order ships absolutely free.
Active Liver from New Nordic protects your liver so you can enjoy life to the fullest. Online at Amazon or in stores at CVS, Wegmans, and now GNC.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center. On the tollways, northbound 355's got a crash on the right shoulder just after Roosevelt Road. Watch out for that to be cleared soon. Otherwise, your expressways building like normal for a Friday. Inbound Kennedy looking good so far. The outbound side slows heading into the airport. It's 25 minutes in from downtown. Outbound on the Stevenson, you got a crash. Slowing things between Central just past Ridgeland. Inbound Stevenson's got a crash taken out a left lane just after Route 59 past US 50. Otherwise, the Stevenson slows Pulaski to Kedzie and again Ashland to the on-ramp of the inbound Ryan. That's typical for this time of day. The inbound Ryan is starting to build, seeing a slight delay there, only 16 minutes in, though, from 95th Street. And you've got your typical slow pockets on DeSable Lakeshore Drive. This report is sponsored by Mattress Firm. Don't wait to save. Mattress Firm's President's Day sale ends soon. Their sleep experts are highly trained to find the right bed for your specific needs. Easier search, better rest. Get both today. They make sleep easy. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will be mostly sunny and breezy with a high of 63. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 29. Tomorrow will be cloudy and much colder with intermittent snow and flurries in the afternoon, accumulating a coating to an inch. The high will reach 36 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment brought to you by Unleash Your Wealth with Raj Shah and Rick Borick this Saturday at 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. Learn more at scwealthadvisors.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. I wish we had some sheriffs in Illinois, like Mike Lewis in Maryland. I've talked about this a bit earlier in the week. A bunch of Maryland sheriffs are not happy that the governor and the state legislature in Maryland ended their 287G agreements with ICE, with DHS. The 287 agreements fall under a couple of different models, but for example, the jail enforcement model that Tom Homan is always talking about, designed to identify and process removable illegal aliens with criminal or pending charges who are arrested by state or local law enforcement agencies. And there are other models too, like the task force model, where you have the agreement serve as sort of a force multiplier for law enforcement agencies to enforce limited immigration authority with ICE oversight during their routine police duties. But what the sheriffs are talking about here is the jail enforcement model. As Tom Homan says routinely and has for years, let us into the jails. It's safer for everybody, including the illegal immigrant. Otherwise, we have to conduct operations on the streets, and that's more dangerous for everybody, including the illegal immigrant and also law-abiding citizens. And it allows for professional agitators to turn communities upside down, like you saw happen in Minneapolis, to some extent in Chicago. None too happy, and they're voicing their opposition. They went en masse to Annapolis, that's the state capital, where they held a press conference to say, what the hell?
This is nothing more than politics over public safety. And we as elected sheriffs are fed up with it. You don't see this many sheriffs in one location in the state at any given time. But we have to come together in unison to stop the ridiculousness that's going on up here in Annapolis, Maryland. And lawmakers need to wake up and realize Marylanders and the American people want public safety over politics. And they're not getting it.
They're not, and that was central to President Trump's remarks during his State of the Union address on Tuesday night. Well, why does it make sense? I mean, if it's not obvious, and even to the extent it is obvious, those abolish ICE, open the borders, sanctuary state and city politicians need to be challenged the way that Mike Lewis is challenging them. I don't know why Illinois sheriffs don't do the same thing with Pritzker at all. Why is that important? Well, I mean, do you want federal and state local law enforcement to work together to stop, say, gosh, I don't know, let me think of an example. Oh, here's one. Tren de Aragua bangers who are engaged in a sex trafficking ring in your community? Would you like that? Does that make sense to you? It makes sense in Omaha. Yeah, Omaha.
The Douglas County Attorney's Office says the investigation is still ongoing, but we do know 6 men are in jail. He says a minor was brought here to Omaha from another city. Omaha police arrested these 5 men on Tuesday. They include Sumit Shadari, Vishal Goswami, Kavan Kumar Patel, Michael Martinez Gonzalez, and Alfredo Zambrano Hurtado. A 6th man, Eduardo Perdermo, faces 5 other charges.
We're in the process of charging several of them with trafficking charges, sexual assault charges. It appears to be, the allegations is a 15-year-old girl who was brought here from another city and trafficked by somebody from this other city. So we'll have more details as we go along here.
We asked Klein if this sex trafficking case is connected to a Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua. Do we know, I guess, if the TDA gang is involved in all that at all with these cases?
That's something I'm very interested in, and there's a possibility.
That's a yes.
Klein says Omaha isn't immune to crimes like sex trafficking.
I think sometimes people don't believe that, hey, sex trafficking can't happen in Omaha, Nebraska. You know, we're not in a gigantic city. We're not in places that you would expect it, but it certainly can, and this is an example of how it can happen.
Mm-hmm. For more on this and related matters, Jason Johnson joins us, former Deputy Commissioner of the Baltimore PD, currently President of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. Jason, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Morning, Dan. Good to be with you.
So you simpatico with those sheriffs in Maryland or that police chief in Omaha?
Absolutely. Fortunately, I have to live in Maryland and served in law enforcement in my career in Maryland. I happen to know Mike Lewis, and he's always been an outspoken guy who will speak the truth, and sometimes that's hard to come by in elected officials, but Mike has always done it, and he's right here. And unfortunately, if you poll our state legislators who voted on this bill, most of them have no idea what the 287G program is. All they know is their party bosses told them they're going to vote for it. That's it. And it's unfortunate the road we're going down.
Yeah, we know how that works in Illinois. Yeah, that is not an unfamiliar story for Chicago and Illinois in terms of roll call votes. And this is anti-ICE. Okay, sign me up. Yeah, right. That's basically the level of thought that's given to these issues, and that's why Lewis is right to say it's politics over public safety. It's not just a political aphorism; it's a handy description of exactly what's going on. And I mean, it was really on display, perhaps most pointedly, although there was some competition. That little girl Delilah and the whole CDL issue and Delilah law, which Indiana Senator Banks introduced the next day, but also when Trump spoke of the gruesome murder of Irina Zarutska on that Charlotte light rail train, and with her mom in the gallery, still obviously very emotional about her daughter's passing, as anyone could understand, and the reaction from half of those assembled. This was that moment.
He slashed a knife through her neck and body. No one will ever forget there were people on that train. No one will ever forget the expression of terror on Irina's face as she looked up at her attacker in the last seconds of her life. She died instantly. She had escaped a brutal war only to be slain by a hardened criminal, set free to kill in America, came in through open borders. Mrs. Zarutska, tonight I promise you we will ensure justice for your magnificent daughter, Irina. How do you not stand? How do you not stand? I'm asking this Congress to pass tough legislation to ensure that violent and dangerous repeat offenders are put behind bars, and importantly, that they stay there.
Yeah. How do you not stand, Jason? Well, we don't stand because they don't agree with us, and they don't agree with the president, and they're representatives of metropolitan areas where this is customary. We just had a woman in Fairfax, Virginia, murdered by a 30-time loser, arrested more than 30 times, including violent crimes, stabbed her to death for no apparent reason at a bus stop. Of course, we had a case that went national. A young woman lit on fire on the CTA train, guy arrested 72 times. We see this over and over again, and the response from politicians in places like New York and Illinois is no cash bail and turnstile justice.
They just keep doubling down, Dan. Just when you think that there'll be enough public awareness about what's going on with these prosecutors in cities and counties across America, their approach to criminal justice is exactly that. Just keep keep releasing them from jail, and they talk about wraparound services and things like that, but it's never been demonstrated that any of that works. What we know works is incapacitation. So if you are a violent offender, particularly a repeat violent offender, you need to be incapacitated, maybe for the rest of your life, but not necessarily. But you cannot just keep turning people out like this with violent criminal tendencies, mental illness, whatever the case might be, and continue to harm Americans over and over and over again. And, unfortunately, the electorate, the voters, just haven't paid sufficient attention to correct this problem at any appreciable level.
I know, it's really staggering. And, the whole thing, too, about rehabilitation and so on and so forth. That argument they make, second chances, 73rd chances, whatever it is. I'll tell you what, why don't we put this person in custody and then this will give you a sense of urgency to deploy all those wraparound services and rehabilitation programs that are at your disposal or that you would like to fund. And then let's see how that person comes out the other side, and we'll have some, a parole board make an assessment of whether or not this person should be released back into the community. But in the meantime, until the wraparound services and the rehab programs that you say, all but eliminate recidivism, until those are actually imposed and completed, then why wouldn't we just err on the side of keeping this person here to make sure he gets or she gets those services and benefits you think will turn them around? It just seems to me we need to flip their argument on its head a little bit.
Agreed. So far, it hasn't taken root. And I mean, again, a simple answer would be for voters to vote these prosecutors out of office, and then we wouldn't have this problem. Now, that has happened on a relatively small scale. I think the most noticeable one is in Los Angeles County. Voters, got rid of their former Soros funded prosecutor, have a new prosecutor in there that's more of a traditional mold. We'll see how that goes. But it just has not, unfortunately, that's a fairly isolated case, and a lot of the other prosecutors remain in place.
Yeah. Heather McDonald wrote a book called War on Cops, and we sort of stopped paying attention so much to what's happening at the local level because the defund the police movement has quieted down to be replaced by the abolish ICE movement, but it's still the same people and the same attitude towards law enforcement. Tell us a story about the East Haven Four that you recently wrote about, because you're seeking a presidential pardon on their behalf, and it's a story that has applicability with what is central right now, and that's this what we do about enforcing immigration law.
Yeah, so thank you. It's actually not a story about enforcing immigration law, but it's a story about how the Obama administration thought every time local law enforcement interacted with illegal immigrants, they were discriminating against them because they're illegal immigrants. And
right. So it sort of implicates it. Yes. Right.
Yeah, it's sort of on the edges. So these four law enforcement officers who were highly decorated, highly respected police. These aren't guys. These are not problem officers, right? These are the cream of the crop. East Haven, Connecticut. Back in 2009, they uncovered a ring of fraudulent registration. So basically, people are driving around in cars that are uninsured with fraudulent registration tags and no driver's license, in many cases, fake driver's licenses. They uncovered a ring that actually had been generating like up to $1 million in revenue and selling these things. Most of these fraudulent registration tags were being used by illegal immigrants. There was an influx of Central American immigrants at the time, and that just happens to be who was making use of these tags. And you can probably connect the dots as to why they were doing that. Nevertheless, this took, long story short, the United States Justice Department under Obama and Eric Holder and Tom Perez happened to be the head of civil rights at the time. I'm sure you remember Tom Perez. Eventually became labor secretary and then head of the DNC. He had a tractor beam on this case, and he got personally involved. They wanted to put a consent decree on the city. The city wouldn't accept it. So the Justice Department decided they were going to target some cops for criminal prosecution. So they identified these guys. They started digging into, they got into the police department's records, and found some cases that they thought they could prosecute. I'm just going to tell you that these cases mount to little, like, if anything, they may have been administrative violations of the department's rules, very minor in nature, certainly nothing criminal. The state and the local prosecutor had reviewed these, at least one of these cases, and decided there was nothing criminal there. Nevertheless, the Justice Department prosecuted these cops. They wound up serving between 4 months and 5 years in federal prison, bankrupt, lost their careers, lost their pensions, lost everything. One of these officers, Dennis Spalding, his wife had just given birth to their second child, days before the end of their trial. So he had a baby at home when he had to report for federal prison. Really, really, really negatively affected their lives. And these are, I've had a chance to meet and speak with each of them. They're stand-up, quality individuals that were great law enforcement officers. And we just want President Trump to grant them a pardon so that they can sort of refresh and restart their lives after having been through this.
So let me give it just an example and then get your comment on this from the piece that you wrote. So these 4 cops, East Haven, they essentially break up this illegal licensure scheme that was going on involving illegal immigrants. And as we're seeing right now, and as we should know, that has huge public safety implications for road safety, as we're seeing with all these people driving around with phony CDL licenses, or at least they may be real CDL licenses, but they were obtained illicitly and they can't read traffic signals and they don't know how to operate semis, which is kind of a problem and kind of a public safety risk. So it was something akin to that, but I mean, within their purview as local law enforcement, as you said. And because like there were one instance was one of the cops poked his finger in the chest of somebody that was being unruly, and that was turned into like a police battery case, a criminal police battery case. That's the sort of things that the feds came in over the top. The Obama feds, like you mentioned, Holder and Tom Perez, came in over the top to criminalize for the purpose of essentially using them as a message to local law enforcement countrywide. Don't even think about it.
That's exactly right. So a little poke to the chest with a finger of a guy that was being placed under arrest and became belligerent and started yelling threats at the officer. That became a federal civil rights violation, prosecuted and resulting in incarceration. It was another incident in which the officers were literally at a bodega, which is a convenience store in the Northeast, is what they call it. They were in there because the bodega was actually selling these fraudulent registration tags. Mm-hmm. They were conducting an investigation, and a guy walks in a trench coat and starts inserting himself into it, starts videotaping them, and is in their space. They start asking him questions. He won't answer any questions. Ultimately, they placed him in handcuffs, and then they found out that he was actually a priest. He was the parish priest of a local, Catholic church where a lot of these illegal immigrants attended. He had kind of appointed himself as the activist. And he became really important in this case later on, but just that moment of detaining him and placing him in handcuffs resulted in another federal criminal prosecution. So, I mean, these are the kinds of things they went after for. They were made up, phony garbage. That is what the Justice Department could get. Tom Perez wanted very much to prosecute some local cops, especially anything that had to do with some allegation of racial profiling or treating people differently based on their nationality or their national origin. And by the way, none of these prosecutions, they actually never found any evidence whatsoever of any form of profiling or discrimination at all. So that's what they were left with. They prosecuted, unfortunately, successfully. And again, we can't change the past. That already happened. We're raising awareness about it. But what we're hoping to do in the future is to clear the path for these guys. They've done their time. Even though the prosecution was wrongful, they did, they served their time in full. They've moved on with their lives, but we just want to clear up this one little thing and correct the record that they should never have been prosecuted by simply giving them a pardon. And that's what we're asking President Trump to do.
Well, I hope he heeds your call. Jason Johnson, former deputy commissioner of the Baltimore PD, currently president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. Jason, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
And he joined us on Chicago's Morning Answer. All right, coming up at 7:07, we're going to talk to Catherine Thompson. She's over at the Cato Institute, former National Security Advisor to Senator Mike Lee. We'll talk to her about how those talks with the Iranians went in Geneva and whether or not she thinks a strike against the mullahs is still imminent. A little bit of national security discussion with Catherine Thompson from Cato at 7:07. It is now 7 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
If you want to leave, go today. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. That's the message the U.S. ambassador in Israel is telling embassy staff in an email this morning, that there may not be flights out in the coming days. This amid a buildup of American military forces in the Middle East and the day after the latest round of talks between the U.S. and Iran. Fox's Jillian Turner's at the State Department.
The two sides spoke for hours, mediated by officials from Oman. So far, U.S. officials are radio silent, but Iran's foreign ministry is talking.
Conflicting statements made by some American officials will continue to cast doubts and questions.
President Trump is demanding Iran scale back its nuclear program, that they can't build a weapon.
Also on the U.S. agenda, Iran's ballistic missile program, its human rights abuses, including the regime's murder of tens of thousands of civilian protesters last month, and its support of terrorists.
And not far away, Pakistan is now saying it's in an open war with Afghanistan after attacks on both sides of the border. Pakistani airstrikes overnight hit the capital, Kabul, and other Afghan provinces. Former President Bill Clinton will be questioned today by the House Oversight Committee about the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation, the morning after his wife spent hours behind closed doors. And Fox's Jessica Rosenthal reports.
After the deposition, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said she did not know Jeffrey Epstein personally and that she had only known his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, as an acquaintance. She was asked, given that Bill Clinton's name appears in the Epstein files, if she was confident he knew nothing about Epstein's crimes.
The chronology of the connection that he had with Epstein ended several years before anything about Epstein's criminal activities came to light.
Democrats want the committee to also question President Trump about his showing up in the Epstein files. Today, the president goes to Corpus Christi, Texas, campaigning for Republicans ahead of primaries Tuesday. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 34 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the QC Kinetics newsroom. A bipartisan group of Illinois lawmakers have introduced energy legislation which would protect consumers from costs associated with the state's planned phase-out of natural gas. Jim Talamonte has more.
Democratic State Senator Javier Cervantes said Senate Bill 3979 requires a thorough review of customer bill impacts before large-scale gas transition projects are approved, and protects taxpayers from unfair cost increases and shifting.
Now, what it doesn't do, it does not stop electrification or clean energy innovation, and it does not roll back environmental progress.
Republican Senator Terry Bryan said Senate Bill 4028 would have the Illinois Commerce Commission address outdated interconnection rules that lead to lengthy timelines and inconsistent costs for developers and businesses.
The bill gives the ICC 180 days to initiate and complete a rulemaking to modernize those interconnection standards and remove bottlenecks.
I'm Chip Talamonte.
Mayor Brandon Johnson is doubling down on his selection to lead Chicago's Commission on Animal Care and Control. He'd given the permanent job to Susan Capello earlier this month after she served as acting executive director over the last 3 years. Well, recently, 17 aldermen submitted a letter to the mayor demanding that he launch a nationwide search for a department head with an April 1st deadline. The council members concerned under Capello's leadership included poor living conditions for the animals and a high rate of taking down dogs and cats. Capello described the pressure the high-volume municipal shelter is under as real and constant. She added that most of the dogs in the city-run shelter are only being walked once a week, and her goal is to change that. This report is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Catch more money with leading economist Steve Moore.
I'm excited about America. I think things are going really well. I think we've turned a corner here. I think Biden economics is well behind us now. This is a miracle what's going on here. If anything, it's better than I thought it would be. So many good things happening in the economy. Low inflation, low unemployment rate, consumer confidence up, business confidence up. All of the indicators are pointing north right now.
It's More Money, Saturday at 3 on AM 560. The Answer.
Did you know most remodeling mishaps start before construction even begins? Here's something else you should know. At Forever Remodeling, we do things differently. Every kitchen, bathroom, and basement project starts with smart planning, detailed 3D designs, a clear scope of work, and accurate pricing, all sorted out before you get started. No surprises, no stress, just beautiful results. Done right the first time. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, EVER, remodeling.com, and schedule your free in-home consultation today. Did you know most remodeling mishaps start before construction even begins? Here's something else you should know. At Forever Remodeling, we do things differently. Every kitchen, bathroom, and basement project starts with smart planning, detailed 3D designs, a clear scope of work, and accurate pricing, all sorted out before you get started. No surprises, no stress, just beautiful results. Done right the first time. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, EVER, remodeling.com, and schedule your free in-home consultation today.
In his new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, Dinesh D'Souza brings the new Middle East into focus.
Could the fate of the world, of humanity itself, be somehow tied to this place?
At long last, we have peace in the Middle East.
Israel and Christians are coming together in a way they have never been before.
But is this the end of Hamas and radical Islam? The Dragon's Prophecy is powerful, prophetic, a must-see movie. Now available on Amazon, YouTube, and iTunes.
The following is a paid political announcement.
There's one thing I really want to say to Donald Trump. If you come for my people, you come through me.
That was Pritzker's challenge to President Trump. But who are Pritzker's people? They're the more than 1,700 illegal alien predators he helped escape from ICE. They're the illegal aliens whose health care, rent, and college tuition you pay for. You can't afford to stay because Pritzker makes you pay for his people. Well, I have a message for you, Governor. I'll be coming for you and going through you. Your days and the days of sanctuary living for your people are over. I'm Ted Drowski, your conservative candidate for governor, and I'm asking for your vote in the Republican primary on March 17th. Paid for by Ted for Illinois.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center on the expressways. Well, things are starting to build out there. The Kennedy, right around 30 minutes either way between O'Hare and downtown with your typical slow pockets. Inbound Eisenhower will take 25 from Wolf to the old post office with a tight spot between 25th and Western. The outbound side just 17 minutes back out to Wolf. On the Stevenson, the inbound will take you 26 from the Tri-State to DeSable Lakeshore Drive. Outbound side still moving along just fine. Inbound Ryan, 20 minutes in from 95th Street. 4 and 57 at DeSable Lakeshore Drive, and your tollways all have your usual slow stuff. This report is a service of American Beam and Steel, structural repair licensed contractors for your home and business. Search for American Beam and Steel online to schedule your consultation directly with the owner, Mark. American Beam and Steel. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will be mostly sunny and breezy with a high of 63. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 29. Tomorrow will be cloudy and much colder with intermittent snow and flurries in the afternoon, accumulating a coating to an inch. The high will reach 36 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. And so Marco Rubio, I thought, offered a nice little distillation of the difference between Iran having nuclear power, not that they necessarily need it, but if they want to power their economy with nuclear power, that's one thing, but that is separate and distinct from a nuclear weapons program, which we can't abide that because Iran is the leading state sponsor of terror in the world, and so therein lies the problem. Here's the explanation. I mean, just because I think sometimes people get confused about no nukes, meaning nuclear weaponization, not nuclear power, and it's pretty easy to distinguish between the two.
If in fact what you're interested in is a peaceful nuclear program, you can do it like most of the countries in the world do it, which is they have above ground reactors and they import the fuel. We have deals now to do that with countries. If what they really wanted was energy from, they could do small modular reactors, which is something that's quite affordable and achievable for a lot of countries. But when you say we want to enrich, and we want to enrich deep underground, and you have a history in the past of enriching to 20 and even 60%, plus you're building missiles that could potentially carry warheads, that doesn't sound to me like someone who's a country that's not interested in building weapons. So it's not just the rhetorical, it's the actions that back the rhetoric, which we simply haven't seen.
So you're looking for a commitment to zero.
Well, they don't need to enrich in order to have nuclear energy. They don't need nuclear energy, by the way. They have plenty of natural gas. But if they wanted nuclear energy, they could have it the way other countries have it. The fact that they refuse to get it that way, the fact that they insist not just on enrichment, but on enrichment in locations located inside of mountains is, I think you would have to lack common sense to not know what that means or what that could mean.
Democrats came away from the Group of 8 meeting kind of sounding alarmed by what they heard and saying that...
Yeah, so that's just on that score. The other thing that's happening is, though the Trump administration has deployed the metaphorical big stick to the region, they are still speaking softly about war. J.D. Vance telling the Washington Post, the idea that we're going to be in a Middle Eastern war for years with no end in sight, there's no chance that will happen. We will ensure Iran isn't going to get a nuclear weapon, but we can solve that problem diplomatically. It really depends on what the Iranians do and what they say. And coming out of the talks in Geneva was a message from the mediator saying that there was significant progress, that the two sides plan to resume negotiations soon after consultations in their respective capitals, and that technical level discussions would take place next week in Vienna. So if that's on the level, then maybe that 15-day clock that Trump put the mullahs on a few days ago would be extended. And if it's not on the level, you may see a strike before Vienna happens. We'll see. But to give more expert perspective on that, we are pleased to be joined by Catherine Thompson. She is a senior fellow in defense and foreign policy studies at the Cato Institute, formerly national security advisor to Utah Senator Mike Lee and foreign policy advisor to Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. Catherine Thompson, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So on that good progress was made, do you take that at face value?
I don't think we can take anything at face value at the moment, but I think it's an encouraging sign that diplomacy is still very much the first and foremost option, as the president highlighted in his State of the Union. And so I think, I think it's better than us, waking up to find out that a strike has happened. I'm also very encouraged by the vice president's remarks, in terms of where his head is at and where sort of the positioning of the administration is at. And so I think, and look, since before Midnight Hammer, there's been a deal on the table to be made if the Iranians are willing to play ball. And so I think, it's an encouraging sign that we're still very much in the diplomacy track of this conversation.
Yeah, and the Iranian foreign minister said good progress too, but I mean, this is all just like, this is pablum. I mean, all that guy does is speak pablum, so like you can't really, and I'm not even sure. I don't know if Kushner and Witkoff can get your arms around where they have to present as strident and tough for the purposes of their domestic audience when they say things like the military program is non-negotiable and the things that he said earlier in the week, and yet. The Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon is non-negotiable for us, but both sides are saying there's good progress. So what does good progress mean, and what does that mean? We're moving from the good progress we've made to technical discussions next week. It just seems like at the end of the day, this is a lot of dancing around to try to avoid the central issue for which there is no compromised position. There's only either capitulation by the Iranians or probably a strike by the Americans.
Yeah, I think, from my perspective, I think this one is a little bit more like because I look at the Ukraine conflict too, and I, have been sort of analyzing from that perspective that it's been a lot of statements coming out of meetings, but not a whole lot of progress on some of the central issues. But in this case, I think moving to technical talks is a good sign on the diplomacy track because really the devil is in the details with any sort of agreement. And the devil is in the technical details because we're talking about, obviously, energy sources, no enrichment, weaponization. All of these kinds of conversations require detailed talks. And so the fact that we're moving into the technical sphere, I would say, again, with this administration, everything can change on a dime. But I think, from my perspective, that at least puts us in the lane of, some potential for progress to be made at the technical level. And that we're not necessarily stuck entirely at the political level.
Speaking of Ukraine, that seems to be in stasis. It wasn't even mentioned in President Trump's State of the Union address, so that would lead one to believe there hasn't been any progress, and the prospect of progress seems dim at this juncture, doesn't it?
I think, on that one, yeah, I'm much more bearish than bullish. I think we haven't, but precisely because we haven't gotten past the political level, right? I think the 28-point plan that was being discussed, toward the early part of this year, end of last year was, in the context of some sort of progress being made, right? Like, again, because, you're dealing with two parties here that are going to have to give on demands, for both sides for this conflict to end. And, I thought we had something on the table, but when Europe came in and basically put the hammer down on, those terms not being agreeable, it made it hard to go back to the table and then, develop a new slate of political asks that seem to be insurmountable for one side or the other. And so I think on that one, I think I'm much more bearish because we just have not moved past the political elements of that conversation.
And doesn't it feel, particularly after the Munich Security Conference, doesn't it feel like the Trump administration is basically saying, okay, Europe, sort of you want to beat your chest a bit. I mean, with the exception of NATO Secretary General, who's much more American user friendly, but you want to beat your chest a little bit. Well, then you figure out Ukraine. Let us know how it works out.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, this sort of like push and pull from the administration with Europe on this front. We saw last year, especially when all the European leaders flocked to D.C. for conversations with the president on Ukraine, he was kind of bear hugging them close. But now I think, just for so little progress being made, despite the fact that, right, NATO allies have committed to spending 5%, which is a huge win for the administration. It's also a huge win that any further arming of Ukraine is going to be paid for by the Europeans. But, they don't seem to want to move the ball on a peaceful end to this conflict, which is really how it's going to end. And I think that the message that they haven't internalized is really that if you guys are going to be the ones that continue to arm Ukraine and don't work toward a peaceful solution, you're going to be in this conflict for a really, really long time. And the chips on the board are not in the favor of the Europeans long term on getting a win out of this conflict.
Mm-hmm. Much less Ukraine's George Washington there is going to have the walls inevitably continue to close in on him, and he must realize that at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy.
So we've got another potential problem with another nuclear power not named Russia or China. Bit of a contretemps there between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Pakistan, a nuclear power. Sometimes people forget, but they are. And, of course, Afghanistan, lorded over by the Taliban. That war that seems to be picking up in intensity, how concerned should we be about that situation?
Yeah, I think anytime that, a nuclear power is on the table in terms of the conversation, I think we have to be vigilant. But I think, I think from our perspective, right, like for U.S. interests in the region, I think the focus is obviously, first and foremost on the Iran discussion. But I think this is exactly why, you have a defense strategy that, from the Trump administration's perspective, puts core national interests first and puts prioritization on allies in the region being able to take on more of the security burden. So when situations like this, come about, I mean, it's not always the U.S. problem to solve, but the U.S. has to pay attention. It has to be aware. But if our allies in the region are equipped, then they sort of assume more of their responsibility on security burden sharing. And so I think, from my perspective, right, it's not a core national interest that's going to take priority, from a defense strategy perspective, but is it something that, the administration is going to monitor and, step in if necessary? I would say, possibly.
Back in our hemisphere, one more I wanted to get your perspective on this boat shooting by the Cubans. The Cuban embassy in the United States, 8 individuals allegedly involved in the shooting incident that occurred. The Cuban authorities claim assault rifles, handguns, IEDs, body armor, telescopic sights, camouflage uniforms, all seized from the boat that they interdicted and shot up. And they're alleging the group planned to carry out terrorist attacks inside of Cuba. Now, of course, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has said we'll independently verify that because, we can't exactly trust that regime. But there hasn't been any more pronouncements from the administration about whether or not the Cubans are representing this accurately or not. And this against the backdrop of a Cuban regime that after the Maduro operation is certainly less stable than it was before. And I think the Trump administration wants to make less stable still. So how do you sort that out?
Yeah, I think the Western Hemisphere is one area where the administration has a lot of really good and strong talking points and somewhat a strong vision of this idea of reasserting U.S. hegemony, over the region, because it is our backyard. And right, like if the Chinese are going to have regional hegemony over the Indo-Pacific, why would we as a great power in competition not attempt to do the same in our own hemisphere? I understand the logic behind that, but I think the challenge is, how far do we go? And what do we care about most? What are the core national interests we're trying to thwart in the region? And that's where this idea of taking out, Maduro, who obviously, no love lost for losing him. But the question is, are we going to do the same type of thing in Cuba? And, if so, what is the core national interest at stake, for the United States? What's on the line and how far are we willing to go are questions that haven't been answered. Meanwhile, right, if you zoom out, you look at our national defense strategy, we recognize that the United States is not prepared to fight, more than two-front war at the same time. We're really equipped to do one conflict at a time. So the priority in our other theaters has to be deterrence. The question is, again, how far are we willing to go in terms of using military power in the region to achieve our objectives, and what are the core national interests at stake? I think this is the area that if I was the Trump administration, I would be thinking about, and I would be heavily articulating over the next year, particularly as we're staring down the barrel of a potential conflict in the Middle East or resumed confrontation in the Middle East. We've got a war not ended in Ukraine, and then we've always got the problem of China looming. So this is a real defense strategy question that I think needs to be answered, given that the Western Hemisphere is, our number one priority.
Well, and if it's not what the Cubans are representing, if it's something else, the boat was registered in Florida. If it was, I don't know, some sort of Cuban rescue operation for people trying to get off that island and get to the United States, or something else was going on other than what the Cubans are representing as thwarting a terrorist attack that is averse to our interests. I mean, that's the sort of incident that can deflect attention, and maybe that would be in the interests of, I don't know, the Venezuelans or the Iranians to deflect America's attention away from those places for, however so much that they are able to. That these are strategic allies, if you will. So you can't take anything they're doing at face value, certainly not until you independently confirm them. So you're just trying to sort of plot out the possibilities and game out what the response would be if again, the Cubans are saying something that turns out to be false.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that has to be evaluated. And I think the secretary's comments about, independent verification is the right play right now, just so that, it doesn't become an unnecessary trigger one way or the other.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Catherine Thompson, Senior Fellow in Defense and Foreign Policy Studies at Cato, former National Security Advisor to Utah Senator Mike Lee and Foreign Policy Advisor to Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. Catherine, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. And she joins us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Business owners, now's the time for your business to make the move to a locally owned business bank. Hi, Mike Gallagher here to let you know that you don't have to look far. Signature Bank was founded in Chicago with a simple mission to help companies like yours grow, succeed, and thrive. Their decisions are made locally by a terrific team that knows your name, cares about your business, and invests in your success. That's why Signature Bank is my bank. I'm a customer. As business owners, they knew that local family-owned businesses were not getting the help they needed or deserved. So I invite you to reach out to my friends at Signature Bank today. Write the number down. Remember this phone number, Signature Bank, 773-467-5630, and learn all about this great bank, 773-467-5630, or visit them online at signaturebank.bank. That's signaturebank.bank. Signature Bank makes commercial banking personal. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Hey, it's Mike Gallagher, hoping you'll join me on the unforgettable Gulf of America cruise happening in November of 2026. Imagine this: turquoise waters, white sand beaches, incredible food, insightful conversations about the future of America. Scott Jennings and I will be your hosts. We'll dive into the issues shaping America as we cruise through some of the most stunning destinations while honoring the 250th anniversary of our nation. Book your cabin today. Text the word cruise to 94878. Text cruise to 94878 or visit mikeonline.com.
On Salem News Channel, principled voices are shaping today's conversation. Scott Jennings brings clarity to the toughest debates. Josh Hammer's blistering commentary puts politics and culture on trial. And Alex Marlowe's insight connects us to what matters most. Watch anytime on Samsung TV Plus, Pluto TV, or find us on your screen at snc.tv. 3 new shows, 1 powerful lineup. Salem News Channel, across America.
Safety. It's so important at your industrial facility. You need to keep your personnel safe and meet OSHA requirements. One problem with your ladders, platforms, or safety guards, and you could be facing costly fines. Vans Industrial helps you meet OSHA standards to keep your employees safe.
Hi, I'm Dave Van Camp, president of Vans Industrial. As a business owner, I realize the importance of keeping my employees safe, and I'm here to offer my expertise. Vans Industrial is a specialty contractor uniquely equipped to design, fabricate, and install safety equipment, including walkways, handrails, stairways, and machinery guards. Our Vans Industrial team can inspect existing systems, engineer solutions, fabricate quality goods, and install them with trained pros, all making a safer environment for your employees.
Call 833-VANS-IND for a free inspection of your facility. Interested in what else they do? Visit vansindustrial.com. That's VANS Industrial.com. Quality craftsmanship since 1964.
You know, there's nothing wrong with flying first class. Of course, everybody's got that cheapskate uncle that always says the back of the plane lands at the same time as the front of the plane. I guess there's some sort of cheapskate logic in that. However, the door is in the front of the plane. So why not get to first class? After all, they have dishes, silverware, glasses, warm towels. And if you want to sit at first class, or you aspire to, all you need is a little planning from Alpha Wealth Group. Their goal is to help maximize your income in retirement. Since you can't take it with you, there's no point in squandering your time. After all, the warm towels make the ride fun. Call Tom Fortino and Alpha Wealth Group for their complimentary roadmap to retirement, so you can take a first-class flight and not worry about the cost. Call 630-864-6711. That number again, 630-864-6711. 630-864-6711, or online at alphawealthgroup.com.
Mike Lindell and the MyPillow employees want to thank you for your great support this past year. They want to make 2026 the best year ever. So to thank you, they are giving you free shipping on your entire order and wholesale pricing. So they are bringing back the mega sale. For example, the classic MyPillows, regularly $49.98, now only $14.98. Turn any mattress into the best mattress ever with the Made in the USA MyPillow My Mattress Topper and save up to $100. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets for as low as $29.98 or the 6-pack towel set for only $34.98. To get the best specials ever, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. These offers won't last long, so call 800-489-0201 or go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY. Order now and your entire order ships absolutely free.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 7:37. I know one person for that Alpha Wealth commercial I just heard. I know one person that's eschewing first class these days because that's where all the middle-aged honky men are. We'll discuss that and some good news with respect to air travel. One airport is heeding Sean Duffy's call to tighten it up, for travelers to tighten it up. We'll have all that at 7:37. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 34 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560. The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the QC Kinetics newsroom. People living in Chicago's Galewood neighborhood continue to oppose a major housing plan. Developers say they want to build 500 housing units on the property of the former Mars Wrigley chocolate factory. A community meeting was held when several residents stated that they wanted that space used for a library, a grocery store, and a job training center for the community. There's no timeline set for when the plan could be approved at this point. And crowds of people in Chicago are saying goodbye to the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. Thousands gathered yesterday at the Rainbow Push Coalition in Kenwood to pay their respects to the civil rights icon. Reverend Al Sharpton, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and other dignitaries joined members of the Jackson family during the public viewing. Services continue today at Rainbow Push before they shift to South Carolina and Washington, D.C. next week. News is a service of American Beam and Steel, structural repair licensed contractors for your home and business. Search for American Beam and Steel online to schedule your consultation directly with the owner, Mark. American Beam and Steel. A check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Your home is a valuable asset, and you want to take care of your home. From roofs, siding, windows, and doors to furnaces, flooring, landscaping, and much more. Listen to your go-to for all things home. It's Home Answers Radio every Sunday morning at 9. Sponsored in part by JeffBuysYourHouse.com and by Center Guard Plumbing. Get answers from industry experts so you can make informed decisions about your home improvement. Right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Hey, it's Scott Jennings inviting you to join me on the unforgettable Gulf of America cruise happening this November 2026. Imagine it. Turquoise waters, white sand, beaches, incredible food, and insightful conversations about the future of our great country. Mike Gallagher and I will dive into the issues shaping America as we cruise through some of the most stunning destinations while honoring the 250th anniversary of our nation. Text cruise to 94878 or visit scottjenningsshow.com and click the cruise banner to sign up today.
As a local business owner, you get called every week by marketing companies. We get it. We have hundreds of satisfied customers. Here's what a satisfied client recently said.
Open enrollment is going great. We're hitting record numbers. Thank you so much for this report. It really is amazing to see how the marketing is really shaping our enrollment around the city.
Salem Surround. Is your business hard to find online? Meet with a digital marketer today for ideas that will make your business stand out. Visit salemsurround.com.
At Terra Vista of Oak Brook Terrace, dementia care isn't just what we do, it's all we do. We specialize in caring for those with Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. We're on the forefront of dementia care with a barrier-free, stress-free environment, so residents can explore safely and feel at home. But what truly sets Terra Vista apart? Personalized care. We take the time to learn each resident's story, where they lived, their routines, former careers, even the names of family members. Anyone who interacts with your loved one can immediately make them feel comfortable and understood. We meet our residents right where they are. Residents stay strong and engaged with multi-sensory activities, music, art, horticulture, our beautiful 18,000 square foot outdoor space, and even a personal trainer. At Terra Vista, residents aren't defined by their dementia. We honor the whole person. Speak to an advisor or schedule a tour today at terravista.org. Again, that's terravista.org, and tell them AM560 sent you.
Hair Volume from New Nordic will make your hair look thick and healthy. Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and newnordicusa.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, we're watching northbound 55. It's stop-and-go traffic between Route 53 to almost 355 because of a reportedly fatal accident there just after US 52. Otherwise, on your expressways, the Edens is moving okay. The Kennedy near 30 in either direction between O'Hare and downtown. Inbound Eisenhower will take you 29 minutes from Wolf to the old post office with a tight spot between First Avenue and Racine. Outbound side, just 19 back out to Wolf. Inbound Stevenson slows. Harlem to Western is 30 minutes in from the Tri-State. Inbound side of the Ryan, 25 minutes from 95th Street. And on the inbound Ford, you got a crash taking out a left lane, slowing things between 130th Street just before 115th Street. This report is sponsored by WeatherBug. Get the fastest local alerts and accurate 24/7 forecasts with WeatherBug. It's easy to use and provides real-time customizable alerts so weather never takes you by surprise. Plan every day with confidence. Download the free WeatherBug app from the App Store now. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now, the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will be mostly sunny and breezy with a high of 63. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 29. Tomorrow will be cloudy and much colder with intermittent snow and flurries in the afternoon, accumulating a coating to an inch. The high will reach 36. By Sunday, it will be colder with a thick cloud cover and a high of 30. I'm meteorologist Jason Catarina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Props here. So, you remember Sean Duffy, he's the Transportation Secretary, when he issued this call back around the holidays, I'm talking about Thanksgiving, for people to be nicer, more considerate of others at the airports, America's airports, you know, during the heavy travel season, of course, but just generally, and including dressing more appropriately as a way to remind yourself maybe to behave more appropriately.
Maybe we should say please and thank you to our pilots and to our flight attendants. I think, again, I call this just maybe dressing with some respect. You know, whether it's a pair of jeans and a decent shirt, I would encourage people to maybe dress a little better, which encourages encourages us to maybe behave all a little better. Let's try not to wear slippers and pajamas as we come to the airport. I think that's positive.
Well, finally, a airport authority has taken him up on it. Tampa Bay is leading the way. Tampa International Airport posted and is circulating this missive. We've seen enough. Seen too much. We've seen enough. We've had enough. It's time to ban pajamas at Tampa International Airport. What a sign of the times. After successfully banning Crocs and giving everyone the amazing opportunity to experience the world's first Crocs-free airport, it's time to take on an even larger crisis. Pajamas at the airport in the middle of the day. We know this decision could be disruptive to someone in your life. It's time to have a difficult conversation with them. You can do this. We believe in you. The madness stops today. The moment starts now. Help Tampa International Airport become the world's first Crocs-free and pajama-free airport. Do your part. Say no to pajamas at TPA, Tampa International Airport. 312-642-5600 to give us a call or text in celebration of Tampa Bay's prodigious effort to lead the way. As I said, Tampa Bay leading the way when it comes to dressing appropriately, behaving appropriately. And, I think the nice thing about this, if you get people out of their pajamas and Crocs at the airport, then you may be able to get them out of that sort of dress permanently. In fact, our friend John Anthony, the host of Black and Right, he wore Crocs to the State of the Union fiesta that we had. And I think he did it just to trigger me, and I was traumatized. But this is what I'm talking about. If it begins, it's sort of the oil spot technique. Start, in a position of strength, like the airport where you have control, and then radiate out from the airport into larger culture so that men stop wearing, and women stop wearing plastic shoes. Men stop wearing open-toe footwear, which also should be banned. I mean, I don't want to get, more aggressive than Tampa. I think they're doing yeoman's work here, but men should not be allowed to wear open-toe footwear ever, particularly in the airport and on airplanes. And the pajamas thing is crazy. 100%. Wonderful. Text from 815, I just flew from Tampa. They were super nice. Yeah. They're nice, happy people down in Florida. Wonder why that is compared to, say, I don't know, Chicagoland. Text from 331, can we wear pajama pants if we're taking a red-eye flight asking for a friend? You're not asking for your friend, and no, you may not. What is wrong with a smart pair of slacks? You can relax in that, particularly if you're in first class, which I assume 331 is. Another one of our well-heeled listeners traveling in style, I have no doubt. And that's even more to the point. That you really have to set the example. If you're traveling in comfort, don't let that, have you showing up like you're a rap star. Mike in Yorkville, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you for taking my call. I think John slipped into Jordans after you seen him with the Crocs.
Probably. Like I said, he was probably just trying to provoke me into some sort of confrontation, which he did.
Well, I'm sorry that happened. I'm sorry. I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening, not thinking about Crocs and toes and all that other stuff.
It was difficult. It was difficult. Yeah. Thanks.
But, the airport that we're talking about, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But the only problem is that what you're talking about is that security, everything that's security related in those places. You don't want to wear anything. I want to go back in the days where people dressed up, because it did put them in that mindset of, I'm here for business. I'm not here to go ahead and act like an idiot. So,
yes, right.
But security checkpoints, Dan.
No, but security is coming back to sanity. We don't have to take our shoes off anymore thanks to the Trump administration, for example.
You're right.
So you don't have that excuse. You don't have that excuse.
But it's like that trigger, that habit. It's like Once you chewed your fingernails and then mom got you out of the habit and then you're by yourself, you get right back into it. How are you going to break the cycle?
Well, I think you should empower TSA agents to strike people who wear pajamas or Crocs, things like this. I think people should be punished.
Roll up the Time magazine. It was useless anyways, and then start hitting people with it.
What that? Slap them upside the head. Thanks, Mike. What's wrong with you? Did you not read the sign? Come on, man. Be better. Maybe encourage them with a little, slap upside the head with the Time the rolled up Time magazine. Text from 320. Guess we won't see Jacob Fry flying into Tampa. Exactly. No pajamas. Pajamas boy. Somebody who listens to the show. Well done. 219, I'll agree to give up my Crocs and pajamas so long as they outlaw the jeans with the custom holes worn halfway down the posterior, I'm guessing. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm willing to deal. And I'm not saying it has to be formal dinnerwear. I mean, that's my choice, but it doesn't have, I'm not expecting, I don't think we're expecting a ridiculously high standard, but, just like business, why can't people dress business casual? What is wrong with that? And that includes, golf attire, which is basically my entire wardrobe. Well, why can't you just put on like a responsible pair of pants and a collared shirt? You can wear a hat if you want. I do. And closed-toe footwear, especially for men. And, comport yourself with some dignity, God's sakes. And also here, the other thing, too, I mean, if I'm going to pile on, I might as well. We've got the ball rolling downhill in Tampa, so I should start there. No novelty T-shirts, particularly for men. I don't want to see, the bikini inspector T-shirts and no, come on. I don't want to see the T-shirt with Mr. Right, the arrow pointing up, and Mr. All Night, the arrow pointing down. I don't want to see that when I'm trying to, enjoy my flight. Jerry in Milwaukee.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. That's a great first step by Tampa. I'd like them to have a butt crack free zone also, and especially in food stores where you see pajamas and clogs and butt cracks all over the place in a food store.
Thanks for the call, Jerry. Text from 708. A lot of questions on this. Track pants allowed. For Italians only. Text from 217. Crocs have holes for your dignity to escape. That's exactly right. I never thought about it quite that way, but that's spot on. 815, ban yoga pants on fat people. I think there should be, how there's a size requirement for your carry-ons, where you have to put your bag in the thing to see if it, comports with the dimensions. I think there should be the same thing for yoga pants. Totally agree. And also, I mean, I have to say it in this day and age, I'm sorry. Something else where there's a prohibition for men. Open-toe footwear, and anything yoga pants or yoga pants adjacent. And I've seen that, and it's unpleasant. Ralph in Rantoul.
Well, I think you're getting close. I think you're heading down the slippery slope, or if you're a skier, it's more like moguls, okay? No yoga pants on fat chicks.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because I don't want somebody to be next to me. I mean, I've called in before years ago about sitting in a seat and having kind of like Jabba the Hutt pool over the armrest onto my lap, and that's unpleasant because it's warm and it's gross.
Yeah, I mean that's just if you're if you're a bit more on the Zoftic side, loose fitting is the way to go. Think of overalls or some sort of tarp.
Tarp?
Yeah.
Tarp is good, or maybe a Coleman tent without the sticks inside.
Right. I mean, but like the whole, like the Dexy's Midnight Runners look, but with the shirt on. And it can't just be the overalls. I mean, that's fine.
Like
it's it's comfortable.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, thanks for the call, Ralph. Like, who is the WWF wrestler? that did Jerry Blackwell from Stone Mountain, Georgia, didn't he sometimes wear big overalls like that? And I thought they were very slimming on him. Andy in Dallas, Texas.
One of the big differences is the way you're treated when you're dressed properly. The flight crews treat you much better when you get on an airplane and you're wearing a sport coat. And I've got a real brief one. I was at the Union League Club the day of the Kings rally, and I was driving out of the parking garage, and the police were sending every single car straight into the loop, into this Gordian knot of pressure. And I had a dinner date with a friend of mine, so I was dressed in a snappy sport coat and slacks. I pulled up to the police barricade. They're never going to get out.
Wait a second. Hold on. You cut out. Hold on. You cut out for a second. You pulled up, so you're dressed in a snappy sport coat. You're going downtown to meet a friend for dinner. You pull up to a police barricade because, the city's up for grabs as per usual. And then what happened?
The police officer said, "You're sending these people into traffic they're never going to get out of. I've got to get out of here." And he looks at me, and he rolls his eyes a little, and then he just pulls the barricade aside and lets me escape down Van Buren. And if I would have been wearing a T-shirt or something, it would have said, "Clown, get back in your car."
Yeah.
But because I was freshly shaven and properly dressed.
Yeah, you were. It was credible that you actually do have somewhere to go to do something productive. Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for the call. At least look the part. I mean, it opens doors or tears down barricades, literally. Tim in Woodstock.
Hi, good morning, Dan. It's kind of interesting to think about where this kind of all started to deteriorate. I can remember my grandparents wearing suit and a dress to the airport, and people on airplanes dressed very, very nicely. And I can picture the Beatles, there's pictures of the Beatles performing in suits and ties. And at some point, and I think part of it is the school, somebody decided one day in the school system that it would be a good idea to have a pajama day. And I just don't see how kids can respect the adults in the building who are walking around in pajamas. But, my son's an airline pilot. He's en route right now. But and I just thought, if the pilot showed up with pajamas on, what would you think? You'd probably want to get off the airplane, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yes, I would. Yeah. Yes, I would.
Have some respect for yourself,
Thanks for the call, Tim. Yeah, pajamas, like tattoos, are basically telling the world I cannot defile myself fast enough. Text from 708, Hacksaw Jim Duncan. Yeah, I know Hacksaw Jim Duncan had the overs, but I thought Jerry Blackwell, I think he alternated between a form-fitting, sort of black, tighted outfit, which was not flattering, and I thought he also went with overalls, maybe later on in the career. But, I remember Hacksaw Jim Duncan with the overalls, 100%. Text from 331, a tasteful moo-moo. That would be fine. You want something flowing. Eduardo, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Dan. Well, hey, I felt obligated to call because you're probably going to say Eduardo's probably going to be calling about this. He's over there.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's great to hear. I mean, I was at a networking event, actually two of them last night, dressed in orange. I mean, these people after COVID, they dress like slobs. Everybody doesn't even throw the garbage right in the can. It's ridiculous.
Wait,
So
did
I'm
you
glad
say you
that
were
we're leading the way.
did you say you were dressed as an orange?
No, I was dressed in a suit.
Oh.
And,
very
about tropical like Miami Vice look. Yeah,
a tropical color because you're in a tropical climate.
Color. There you go. Yeah,
very good.
Yeah.
I'm sure
but
you.
The Tampa Airport has
resplendent.
nice and amenities. So, yeah, everybody come on down, stay at the airport while you're looking for your house to relocate here in Tampa Bay or somewhere nearby.
Thanks for the call, Eduardo. Yeah, right. There you go. First person accounts from the belly of the beast of enlightenment, as it were. Related story. You'll love this. Related flight travel story. A former Vogue editor named Gabriella Carifa Johnson downgraded herself from first class to business class on a flight to Milan. Oh, sure, I remember the Paris to Milan leg, back when in my runway days. Sure. She's not a model, far from it, but she's fashion industry adjacent. Why did she downgrade from first class to business class? Because she's a woman of the people. She posted, I downgraded myself first class to business class in my flight to Milan. In a cabin of 6, 5 of the passengers were white middle-aged men. The horror. Then there was me, a 30-something black woman who travels in that cabin often, and a male flight attendant who thought it'd be okay with substandard service and persistent microaggression from the moment I sat down. Okay. He was wrong. I don't suffer fools, honey. And I would sacrifice physical comfort to protect my emotional and mental well-being any day. Man. She did the first class passengers a service. You pay for first class and you're going to enjoy a nice, relaxing flight, and you have to have some identitarian, hatchet lady looking to have a social media moment, jackpot people. Their first problem is the idea of a male flight attendant. I mean, that's just the first problem. But no, obviously it's her ridiculous, identitarian addled attitude. She's once simultaneously enjoying quote unquote white privilege while punishing those who she believes slighted. I mean, it's a lot to unpack there, but it is sort of that ungracious ingratitude that punctuates the left on display. But, I'm sure if she would have offered her offered her seat in first class up to another person of color, any person of color in business class or steerage, you want to come up and take my first class seat and have to deal with these 5 middle-aged honky dudes? I bet somebody would have taken her up on that. Many people. Put it to the market test. Dollface. Deborah, Arlington Heights.
Morning, Dan. So 2 new low, no dress code stories, real life. I was on a flight and a kid walked on the plane and had a T-shirt on that said, F you, but spelled out in big letters on the front. And at work, when we lost the dress code, I had a kid in the cafeteria that I was viewing from another table that had gym shorts on, and the plumber thing was happening in the cafeteria at work, if you know what I mean.
Thanks for the call, Deborah. It's a good example of exactly what I'm talking about with both the novelty T-shirts, and I did mention it, but I'm glad you mentioned it. Men, no shorts. No shorts. You wear pants. You wear closed-toe footwear. You wear a collared shirt, perhaps a smart jacket like our friend Andy in Dallas. You can, put it up in the bin so it doesn't get wrinkled in flight. But you present yourself accordingly, gentlemen. Dan Prof, Chicago's Morning Answer.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The following is a paid political announcement.
There's one thing I really want to say to Donald Trump. If you come for my people, you come through me.
That was Pritzker's challenge to President Trump. But who are Pritzker's people? They're the more than 1,700 illegal alien predators he helped escape from ICE. They're the illegal aliens whose health care, rent, and college tuition you pay for. You can't afford to stay because Pritzker makes you pay for his people. Well, I have a message for you, Governor. I'll be coming for you and going through you. Your days and the days of sanctuary living for your people are over. I'm Ted Drowski, your conservative candidate for governor, and I'm asking for your vote in the Republican primary on March 17th. Paid for by Ted for Illinois.
In his new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, Dinesh D'Souza brings the new Middle East into focus with a message of perseverance, faith, and a shared global destiny.
Could the fate of the world, of humanity itself, be somehow tied to this place?
At long last, we have peace in the Middle East.
Israel and Christians are coming together in a way they have never been before since the book of Acts.
But is this the end of Hamas and radical Islam? What does the Bible say?
We have to become fighters in the spirit for God. We don't accept what the enemy wants to do with our culture. We don't accept what he wants to do with the nation. If we keep fighting, we win.
Powerful, prophetic, a must-see movie based on Jonathan Cahn's international bestseller, The Dragon's Prophecy, combines history and scripture with faith, justice, and renewal. The Dragon's Prophecy, a new film by Dinesh D'Souza, now available on Amazon, YouTube, and iTunes. AM 560, The Answer.
Text from 847, what about a Prof University novelty t-shirt? No. That's for working out, playing basketball. You travel, you wear the Prof University collared shirt. I don't make exceptions. All right, coming up at 8:08, Ted Drowski. He's a Republican candidate for governor. The other candidates have or will be invited, Bailey, Mendrick, Heidner, but I'm sure they're too cowardly to show up. Not Ted. We'll talk to him at 8:08. And then 8:38, Open Mic Friday. It's now 8 o'clock on AM 560 WIND.
A memo to U.S. Embassy staff in Israel. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. As U.S. military forces build up in the Middle East ahead of a possible conflict with Iran.
United States Ambassador Mike Huckabee has told embassy employees that anyone who wants to leave Israel has permission to do so, and anyone who does want to go back to Washington should go today. Get the first flight you can, says Ambassador Huckabee's email, adding that in days to come, flights may not be available. He does say there's no need for panic, but it comes after U.S. and Iranian negotiations ended another round of nuclear talks without a deal.
Fox's Jonathan Savage. The U.S. is demanding in those talks that Iran scale back its nuclear and missile programs, and Vice President Vance gets involved today.
The foreign minister of Oman, who has been facilitating some of these talks with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and the Iranians, plans to meet with J.D. Vance today to try to talk the U.S. out of a new Middle Eastern conflict.
Fox's Peter Ducey at the White House. Former President Bill Clinton will be questioned in 2 hours in Chappaqua, New York, where he lives, about the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation by the same House Oversight Committee that his wife Hillary Clinton talked to for hours yesterday.
I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein.
Democrats want the committee to also question President Trump about him being in the Epstein files. The president will go to Corpus Christi, Texas today, campaigning for Republicans before Tuesday primaries, touting an economy he says is roaring. We got an inflation update this morning. Prices at the wholesale level rose 0.5%.
That is hotter than the 0.3% that was expected, and it matches December's number.
And while the annual rate of producer price increase dropped slightly to 2.9%, Fox Business Network's Lauren Simonetti also reports.
If you strip out volatile food and energy, core PPI year over year in January, 3.6%. The market is selling off further on this information.
As for that looming sell-off, Dow futures down about 500 points. America's listening to Fox News.
WIND, Chicago.
Good morning. It is 36 degrees here in Chicago on AM 560. The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Chicago leaders are still working to keep the Bears here in Chicago. The city's acting CFO, Steve Maher, testified yesterday during a House committee meeting in Springfield about the bill that's related to the stadium project.
If the state is willing to support infrastructure spending elsewhere, either through direct or indirect subsidy, to facilitate a new sports stadium, then the state should be willing to support infrastructure spending in and around the museum campus for a similar development.
Maher says the team's departure from Chicago would have negative long-term consequences. Crowds of people here in Chicago are saying goodbye to the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. Thousands gathered yesterday at the Rainbow Push Coalition in Kenwood to pay their respects to the civil rights icon. The Reverend Al Sharpton, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and other dignitaries joined members of the Jackson family during the public viewing. Services continue today at Rainbow Push before they'll shift to South Carolina and Washington, D.C. next week. People living in Chicago's Galewood neighborhood continue to oppose a major housing plan. Developers say they want to build 500 housing units, which would be located on the former Mars Wrigley chocolate factory site. However, a community meeting was held where several residents stated that they wanted that space to be used for a library, grocery store, and even a job training center for the community. There's no timeline set for when that plan could be approved at this point. And work is set to begin next week on a new Chicago Street interchange at I-80. The work is part of ongoing efforts to rebuild I-80 in Minooka, Joliet, and New Lenox. The Chicago Street interchange is the last of 6 to be rebuilt along the project corridor. Construction will be carried out in stages, but initially will require lane closures in both directions of Chicago Street between McDonald Street and Doris Avenue. Check of the roads is coming up in 2 minutes, but time now for the AM 560 Business Beat, a service of Signature Bank.
I'm Charles Payne, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Netflix shares are rallying up 7.5% after the streaming giant pulled the plug on its deal to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. Paramount Skydance raised its offer to $31 a share, which Warner Brothers Discovery decided was superior to the Netflix deal. Netflix did not want to make another bid, saying it was no longer financially attractive. Paramount Skydance shares are up 6%. Mortgage rates measured by Freddie Mac have dipped below 6% for the first time in more than 3 years. Real estate agents and economists tell the Wall Street Journal the move below the psychological threshold could finally push more people to apply for a home. Dell shares are up 11% after sales jumped 39% in the recent quarter. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Cosola, invested in you.
Make sure that you never miss a day of Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft when you subscribe to the Chicago's Morning Answer podcast, presented by Signature Bank. Listen to the entire show each day on demand with limited commercial breaks. You can subscribe today for free at 560theanswer.com and click on podcasts or search for Chicago's Morning Answer on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
If you or someone you love are getting high quotes for dental implants, visit almostfreeteeth.com today. With a medical PPO insurance plan, it's possible to save 90% off on average to be able to smile again. Check if you qualify now at almostfreeteeth.com.
If you owe back taxes, listen carefully to rule number 1. Never go up against the IRS alone. They're cracking down, freezing bank accounts, garnishing paychecks, canceling passports. Even your home or business could be at risk. But here's what they don't tell you. The IRS has powerful tax relief programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. That's why smart people call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. Nobody knows these programs like the experts at Optima. Their team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $2 billion in tax debt for people just like you. The IRS is not stopping, so don't wait and don't take them on alone. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima today for a free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Think your IT systems couldn't get any better? Prove it. Take the Access One $10,000 challenge. For companies with 25 to 500 employees, we'll conduct a free, confidential risk assessment based on NIST or CIS regulations. If your systems and processes are 100% compliant and we can't find a single improvement opportunity based on the regulations, we'll write you a check for $10,000. For over 30 years, Access One has helped Chicagoland businesses strengthen cybersecurity, streamline IT operations, and reduce costs through managed IT and cloud solutions. Ready to take the challenge? Schedule your free, confidential risk assessment. Visit accessoneInc.com/challenge or call 800-654-1555. Certain terms and conditions apply. See details online.
Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr., now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center on the tollways, northbound 355, you've got a crash near North Avenue, taking out 2 right lanes there. It's causing a backup. Otherwise, your tollways have the typical delays on the expressways. The Edens is moving well. Inbound Kennedy, 33 minutes from O'Hare to downtown with your normal slow pockets. The outbound Kennedy, it's going to take 40 minutes to get out to the airport. It's tight between Montrose and Sayre. Inbound Eisenhower, 34 from Wolf to the old post office. Outbound side, just 20 minutes back out to Wolf. Inbound Stevenson, you're looking at 33 minutes in from the Tri-State. Inbound side of the Ryan will take you 30 minutes in from 95th Street to the Merge. Outbound side looking good. This report is a service of Woodland Windows and Doors. See Marvin Products in their beautiful showroom at the corner of Lake and Gary and Roselle, or visit woodlandwindows.com for a free in-home expert consultation. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now the latest forecast from the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today will be mostly sunny and breezy with a high of 63. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a low of 29. Tomorrow will be cloudy and much colder with intermittent snow and flurries in the afternoon, accumulating a coating to an inch. The high will reach 36 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Jelly Belly is up with a new ad, and it's wonderfully humanizing. You know, it's picks up on his long walks on the beach with Marianne Ahern, long walks along the lakefront, because he's slimming down, you know, and it's all exercise, right? He talks it like he walks it. Like, what, you mean like a phony?
Morning. I started walking to get more steps in. Hey, how you doing? But the real highlight is the people I meet along the way. On sidewalks. Really nice to meet you. Train platforms. But we appreciate you supporting the community. In neighborhoods. Thank you for your service. I'm deeply proud of the people of Illinois, and I want you to feel the same pride in our state. 8 years ago, Illinois was being crushed by debt and unpaid bills. 10 credit upgrades later, more than any other state, we've saved taxpayers billions. We expanded early childhood education, guaranteed paid leave for workers, lowered the price of prescription drugs, and I fought for our basic freedoms to protect innocent people and keep soldiers off our streets.
Definitely feel like you're with us.
These are uncertain times, but Illinois will keep pushing forward, and I'll keep walking with you, mile after mile.
What you're doing for us.
Because Illinois should have leaders who fight hard for the people we serve.
J.B. Pritzker, standing for progress, fighting for you.
Standing for progress until his legs give out. For a rebuttal, please be joined by Ted Drowski, formerly president of wirepoints.org. Now, as you know, Republican candidate for governor. TedForIllinois.com is his campaign website. And for anybody who is living under a rock and doesn't know, I'm supporting and working for Ted and have been since the announcement of his candidacy. Ted, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Dan, and thanks for having me on. Thanks for your support. And how about if Pritzker would slim down the budget, slim down our taxes, and slim down our gas taxes and a whole bunch of other stuff? That's what he should slim down.
Yeah, no, I like you continuing with the metaphor. So the rebuttal, though, but what are you talking about? He's accomplished all these things. Credit is up, debt is down. He's protecting the innocent and keeping soldiers off our streets.
Well, you know, it's so good that the Bears want to leave Illinois. I mean, that's how good it is. I mean, I think he's crushed Illinois, and we all know all the things he's done. You've had all these great companies leave, Caterpillar and headquarters and Boeing headquarters, and now it's down to the Bears. And I think it just captures exactly what he's done to Illinois. People want to flee, and that's why I'm running for governor, to flip things around and make people want to stay here and then come here. That's what we need to get to, is be a beacon again.
So you've had a couple of debates this week, a couple nights ago on Fox Chicago, and then last night with our able friend Mike Scott moderating. Your takeaways from those discussions with your competitors?
Well, first of all, it was great to hear Mike Scott's voice again. I haven't heard him in a while, so that was great. The takeaway, first of all, Bailey wasn't there. Darren Bailey was not there. He's skipping the debates, and I think it's really funny and strange because he lost by 35 points in Cook County in the suburbs last time. He lost 13 points overall. So for him to think that he can, diss the people of Cook County like that, it's incredible. First of all, the other thing was what's interesting about the other candidates is that they're good guys, but one of them just came in 5 minutes ago into the race. I think doesn't know anything about policy. You can tell that in his comments. And my other competitor's a great sheriff, but he's a great sheriff. I'm the one that's got the 15 years of banking finance experience overseas, and then you put that together with the last 15 years of policy, and I think hopefully that's what's shown through is that I have the background and experience to fix this state, especially the Chicago downgrade that came out yesterday.
The credit downgrade in Chicago.
Credit downgrade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's at some point you hit rock bottom and start digging, and I guess Chicago's right at that point. Unsurprising given everything that we know. But even with the credit upgrades at the state level, modest as they are, and the most of any nation in the country, well, we had the farthest to go. I mean, they're all predicated on taking more and spending more. So, the credit worthiness is not it's an aspect of, your financial well-being, but it's just one of many metrics that need to be considered, isn't it?
Well, it's just one of many metrics, but usually you can tell the guy that's got the lowest credit score. That's people that you don't want to lend money to the guy with the lowest credit score. You worry about him, you don't trust them, and that's kind of where Illinois is. And
even with the upgrades, even with the
upgrades, yeah, we're still at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, we're the worst in the country, and this is what's funny is that Pritzker doesn't. What he skips is we got upgrades because of all that funny money during COVID that we got from the federal government. But so did New York State, and so did Connecticut, and so did New Jersey, and all the other bad states. They all got upgrades too. So we stayed at the bottom. We're just less bad than we were. But now we're starting to go down again, and that's showing up in Chicago right now. It's all the mismanagement and corruption.
So you just said the funny money papered over all this for a couple of years, but it didn't change the fundamental financial structure of Illinois. And so, so now we're back at it, which is why you have all these discussions about and some pullback of money being spent on, say, people residing in Illinois in this country illegally, some pullback there out of necessity, not because they don't want to continue financing Pritzker's people, as he calls them.
Pritzker's people, yeah, all that. Well, I tell you, what's been amazing about the trail is property taxes are by far the biggest issue, and people are complaining so much about it. They get really heated up. But I think the real litmus test, in this whole campaign is what are you going to do about the Safety Act, and what are you going to do about the sanctuary state stuff? That's what riles people up, and so we have to make sure that those are the first two things we flip when we get in office. Because that's that kind of shows that we're serious about changing things, and then of course we got to get to the finances, because we're not going to attract investment, and we're not going to grow if we're just slammed with debt and nobody trusts the state. So we have to fix those things first.
Well, speaking of the Safety Act and sanctuary state, all the candidates take the same position. So what distinguishes you from them in terms of concrete action?
Well, I think you and I've talked about this. The first thing we have to do is we're going to take the page right from Pritzker and make it a crime crisis, an emergency crisis, and we're not going to do anything until we solve that. There's no real state and real city in Chicago if people don't have safety and they can't trust being able to go outside. And so we've got to immediately work with law enforcement, work with federal law enforcement, and we're going to take the 100 states attorneys that oppose the Safety Act, and we're just going to stop business until we all agree that the Safety Act has to go. And then, of course, I think it's easier to stop the sanctuary stuff because we'll just immediately cooperate with federal authorities. So, I think the experience I've got working with all this information. I think knowing how to use it and how to use leverage with all the different, let's call them the different allies on this to stop the Safety Act and sanctuary state, that's going to be the big deal.
So you're talking about executive action. I mean, you're going, like you say, we learned from the Pritzker precedent during COVID. So if that's the way you want to play it, then we'll take that precedent and apply it to this, which is we're immediately cooperating with, as you say, federal law enforcement. We're going to do that through executive action and do that. And we're going to end no cash bail through executive action as well, working with sheriffs and state's attorneys on both scores. And if they want to litigate it, then we'll litigate it. But everything else comes to a halt. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, it comes to a halt. But I think we've got enough. We can get enough of the public pressure. I mean, when you have 100 states attorneys against the Safety Act, and when you have so many people who are against the sanctuary state, sanctuary city, of course, Pritzker's never going to rally those people, right? He's going to rally the other side. We got to rally our side, and our side's big and it's powerful. It's just held back right now, and but it needs a governor to one cheerleader to use the bully pulpit and to use all federal forces that are possible, and let's go.
Well, I mean, the flip side is more tragic stories like this one this week, the killing of Uber Eats driver in a carjacking. His name is Daniel Figueroa, 28 years old. The woman who killed him, according to Assistant State's Attorney, lengthy criminal history, includes convictions for forgery, gun possession, robbery, burglary, possession of stolen motor vehicle, escape, and more. She also has a habit of pretending to be her sister when police ask for ID. She was arrested 2 weeks ago by Melrose Park police for driving on a suspended license, fleeing police, and identifying herself as her sister, as so advertised. Here's what happened. Figueroa left his Dodge Caravan outside of Loretto Hospital entrance while he ran inside to deliver a doctor's Uber Eats order around 2 a.m. She jumps in the car. He sees his car pulling away. He grabs onto the passenger side door, and she speeds up. He falls, gets run over by the back tire, and dies from a traumatic brain injury. Here's his dad.
He had a family that loved him. He was a good kid. He was too young to die. A parent isn't supposed to bury their children.
No, they're not, and that happens way too often in Chicago. And the phrase that we always use on this show, Ted, is preventable crimes, both foreign and domestic, both domestic and imported. Preventable crimes. That's the thing that just frustrates people to no end, understandably.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's one thing for crimes that are perpetuated by bad guys from here, but it's another thing to let a bunch of criminals in, welcome them in with welcoming policies, as Pritzker has done. Provide sanctuary for those bad guys by letting them run around and hide in our state. Those are the preventable ones, and that's what's sad, and that's what's amazing. Pritzker will never touch these crimes. He ignores them. They don't exist. And we all know our friend Joe Abraham. Joe Abraham lost his daughter Katie, and he's still waiting to ever hear something from Pritzker, but he hears nothing from Pritzker because Pritzker doesn't care about this.
Just going back to property taxes, since you mentioned it, and sort of specific plans that provide some separation between the candidates, what you're proposing versus what others have or have not done or have not proposed. I mean, we know people are upset. You saw the same residents of West Side neighborhoods burning their property tax bills back before the first of the year, as I did. So what's the plan for you? What is that you want to pursue as governor?
Well, the anger, just real quick, the anger on the west side, it's similar in southern Illinois. I was surprised. Southern Illinois, they're just as ticked off. Central Illinois, so it's a big issue. What we need to do is do what Indiana has. Let's take a page right out of their playbook. They have a 1% hard cap on the highest your property can be taxed. So take the home value, the cap is 1%, and for corporations 3%. And that's what we need to do to bring some stability to bring down the taxes, force our governments to live within their means, and then of course we got to pursue the cuts to get there, and things like cut the most units of government. We got so much bloat and fat that there's plenty of money there. But the first and foremost is put a cap on these things. Otherwise, the government just keeps taking more and more and more.
Well, and just explain that too, because people say, well, wait, I hear politicians, I get mailers around election time saying I voted for property tax, I support property tax caps, and we have property tax caps, but we don't really. They're Swiss cheese caps. They're not real caps like you have in Indiana or California, where it's 1% of assessed valuation, and it cannot increase beyond that unless there's a capital event, meaning an improvement or a sale. In terms of reassessment. So how does that compare to what we have now, which is phony caps?
What we have now is we have phony caps. It caps the levy. It caps how much a city or a municipality can spend, but you get new property. And here's the real issue. There might be some caps for the city, but what about a cap on your house? And this is the difference. This one puts a 1% cap on the value of your home. So you can't get screwed all the time by all the shenanigans of shifting values around that the state does and all that. It means what your property tax will never be more than 1% of your home value. And that provides certainty, and that's what people deserve. And
they can't inflate your home value to inflate your property tax bill.
Exactly.
But by fiat, essentially, which is what they do now, so that number one, your home equity is protected, and number two, to the extent your home value increases, that you realize the increase. And that's right. You realize a return on the investment, which is nice. It happens in a lot of other states, just not this one.
Yeah, I mean, here what happens is that you get into some communities where the value of your home, you're being taxed 4% of it, 5%, 6%, 7%. It gets out of whack, and this is what squeezes certain people out of their homes. Home values collapse in certain communities, and that just triggers a vicious cycle downwards. And the typical is South Cook and all those communities, they're trapped in exactly that right now.
Yeah, that would. I mean, people can appreciate what a boon that would be to Illinois. I mean, even in the sort of the lowest tax areas, like think Oak Brook because of the mall there, you still have the median property tax rate as a percentage of home value at like 1.3, 1.4%. So you're talking about 30%, 40% savings in a low tax area like Oak Brook. And you get into some of the collar counties, where, as you say, or poor communities in South Suburban Cook. I mean, you're talking about savings, exponential savings, 2x, 3x, 4x, 8x. Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah, I just met a gentleman who went and bought 5 acres in Tennessee, and the property taxes, he said, were like $4,000. I mean, there's no comparison. I mean, you're talking about people being able to save thousands of dollars a year, and thousands of dollars for a lot of people is a lot of money, and that's whether you're talking about college education or just putting money aside for retirement or health care. And this is real money. We're not talking about $50 and $100.
Yeah, and it compounds annually. The winnability argument, in terms of the idea of trying to spring this upset, we understand this is a state that is center left, that is light blue. I don't think it's as deep blue as people think, but it's light blue, and so Pritzker's the favorite, particularly given his resources. Although, his time around, there's fatigue that usually sets in when a politician is running for his 3rd 4-year term or 6-year term. So that's a possibility. But why you think you're the best candidate to spring this upset as compared to the others?
Well, one, I'm from Cook County, so is my running mate. We're both from Cook County, so we speak Suburbanese and have more appeal. We know that Darren Bailey had no appeal up here, so that was a big problem for him. We're from here, so that helps. The other big thing is I think Pritzker's become so extreme, and I think common sense conservative positions now sound pretty good. And again, we're trying to win at the margin, right? We're not trying to win over the far left people, so that has to be understood. So I think we make sense on things like get DI out of schools, no boys and girls sports, all that kind of stuff makes sense. And the other thing I like that we've built a coalition that I think the other guys can't and haven't built. We've got fundraising from downstate conservative donors, from Chicago corporate types, and of course Dick Uihlein. And the part that I've been excited about too is just building a coalition among the ethnics. Being half Polish, half Latino, I've been to the evangelical Hispanic churches, to the Polish community, which means Ukrainian, Slavic, Romanian, Bulgarian. I think we can really build a coalition that gets you to the 50% plus one given that Pritzker fatigue and the fact that he's so extreme, ordinary people are looking for ordinary behavior, let's call it.
Yeah, sort of return to normalcy or the common sense counter-revolution
Kind of
that
Midwest,
Trump is leading.
Make Chicago a Midwest state again, not an extreme state.
Yeah, make Chicago a Midwest state again. That's a good way. I don't know if the acronym works, but it's catchy. All right, Ted Drowski, Republican candidate for governor. For more information on his campaign, tedforillinois.com is the website, tedforillinois.com. Ted, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. All the best.
Annie joined us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
If you're like most Americans nearing retirement with money in a 401k or IRA, then listen carefully. The U.S. dollar is under pressure. Foreign nations are reducing reliance on the dollar, and some analysts are openly warning about the long-term stability of U.S. currency dominance. Whether you call it currency debasement or the collapse of the dollar, the risk is real. And when confidence in the U.S. dollar shifts, gold and silver historically respond. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000 to get your free gold investment kit. You'll also receive a free copy of Ken Rogoff's book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Most American retirement accounts are dramatically underallocated to precious metals, even as central banks continue buying gold at record levels. Many Americans are rolling over a portion of their retirement savings into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty-free with Advantage Gold. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000. Results vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
When you can no longer handle your own home, Hearthstone Assisted Living at the Lutheran Home in Arlington Heights is here to help make life easier. Experience upscale living with comprehensive health services. We offer fine dining, engaging activities, available chaplains, weekly worship services, and quality amenities including a bistro, expansive library, and general store. For a limited time, mention WYLL for an additional discount. Call 847-595-5024 or visit LutheranLifeCommunities.org.
AM 560, The Answer.
Open mic! Open mic Friday! Call it now! Open mic Friday!
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Yeah, that time of the week. We close it out as we do with Open Mic Friday, where we take your calls with comments, concerns, criticisms, compliments, general crack pottery. We'll take it all. 312-642-5600, which is where you can call us or text us. 312-642-5600. I do have a couple things I want to get to, but we'll open up the lines, get things rolling. Kevin in Las Vegas.
Hey, Dan, good morning. I accidentally told the screener debate. I meant State of the Union. I was like half asleep. I wish Trump would have done a little more trolling. I did like the shot at Pelosi with the whole stock trading thing. Would have been really nice if he maybe pointed to two of those empty seats and called out Chucky Schumer for inviting his imaginary friends, Joe and Eileen Bailey.
That would have been great. A Joe and Eileen Bailey reference would have been entertaining. A little inside baseball probably, but that would have been good. Thanks for the call, Kevin. I actually think he did a really A-plus job with the trolling, and he got the moments he wanted. I mean, he used the theater as the message all the times that the neo-Marxists were sitting on their hands when common sense Americans were actually or quietly applauding, cheering for the people that were special guests, for the policies that Trump proposed. I mean, all common sense. I mean, he just got them on the wrong side in a very visual way of 80, 20, 90, 10 issues. And the GOP already has a commercial out, as you would expect, because the setups are, I mean, they write themselves. The stand if you think the first duty of the federal government is to protect Americans, and when you didn't stand for Irina Zarutska's mom, and you didn't stand for little Delilah, and you didn't stand for, many of them didn't stand for the USA hockey team, for goodness sakes, and you didn't stand for the girl who detransed, and the idea that minors shouldn't be trans without their parents' approval. The line that Trump delivered, that was essentially the closing argument.
If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. These people are crazy.
Tom in Blue Island, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, Dan, good morning. Dan, your lawyerly experience, I'm curious why there hasn't been some kind of Supreme Court case in relationship to the sanctuary cities over federal, in relationship to abrogating federalism.
Well, I mean, there has to be a case that makes its way up to the Supreme Court. They have to grant cert on a case. Thanks for the call, Tom. But I mean, there have been Department of Justice. There have been suits over the Trump administration's posture towards sanctuary cities, involving the withholding of federal funds and those sorts of matters that are being litigated in federal courts right now. So, they're taking up birthright citizenship. That's a big deal. They're not going to take up all of these related immigration issues at the same time. But you can bet, if not under the Trump presidency, that under another presidency, even perhaps a neo-Marxist one, but more likely, I think it would be more likely if it was under, say, a Vance or a Rubio presidency. You can bet the Supreme Court will be compelled to take it up, because this is going to continue to be an issue that nags in federal courts with disparate outcomes. And so the Supreme Court is going to have to reconcile exactly where the lines are. Or, by the way, if Congress would like to reassert the powers that it has, and if Republicans were to enjoy majorities, then you could actually move legislation in this direction, too, to draw the lines in a more precise fashion. And the funding implications for abrogating responsibilities here, or interfering in a, shall we say, less formal matter that is required at present to run afoul of the law. In other words, what's required at present is, actual interference with a federal law enforcement operation. But essentially, passive-aggressive interference is not actionable. And, that's gooey. And some clarification there could be had by Congress and ultimately by the courts. But let's not forget about Congress here. I know they want us to forget about them so they don't have to do anything, but they have legislative power, and we expect them to use it, as we're talking about right now, most pointedly with the SAVE Act. Or, frankly, with the Delilah law about CDL licenses. Rick in Downers Grove.
Hey, good morning. I got a couple things. One's a compliment for you, but the first thing is your opinion on because let's face it, the planets are lined up as good as they're ever going to be. We got the right people in the Trump administration. They got, Congress, Senate, and the presidency. What do you think is going to happen? Are they ever going to prosecute any of the dirtbags like the Walls, the Comeys, the Faucis, Brennan's, Clappers on the corruption?
Well, Comey's under indictment right now, but yeah, I take your point.
But actually go to prison, not just, go through the motions, and then he ends up with a $20 million book deal. Because if they don't do that, I get the impression that everybody's going to be like, by the end of his term, if nothing happens to any of these people, I think the hardworking taxpayers, the people who play by the rules, are going to be like, you know what? What's the point? It's never going to happen because it's as good as it's ever going to get to make, to prosecute these people and put some of them in prison. But hopefully they'll do something. But here's the compliment for you. Last week you read Eric Swalwell's poem.
Yes.
What was that thing called?
Hungover from Burgundy.
Okay, see, I would have called it sloppy drunk, but that's just me. But when you read that, I got to tell you, I was inspired. I was moved. I was emotionally drained. I mean, I had to turn the lights off and lay down, and I was at work when I did that.
Yeah.
So, bravo, Dan Prof, on your reading. Bravo.
Well, thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. I am nothing if not skilled in the art of dramatic readings of prose, particularly from Eric Swalwell. It probably makes you want to run out and date a Chinese Communist Party asset. And since you raised the specter of it, I feel obligated to offer my rhetorical interpretation of Eric Swalwell's masterpiece, his magnum opus, if you will, entitled Hungover from Burgundy. Dim the lights, if you choose, whether at home or at your workplace. And their beauty was formless and magnificent, a flurry of limbs and nails. She chased and I ran. I chased and she ran. Atop my hotel she stopped. And I leapt for cloth and tan. My anxious arm she bit. My scar is beautiful. While I screamed, she bent her lips to mine, kissing till veins imploded and exploded, till blood roiled down our chins. For bounded mouths cannot speak of parting. In the morning I awoke beside beauty's shadow, her form sloppy and her legs pale, my scar lost, my lips cracked and dry, and we groaned simultaneously. And scene. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Randy in St. Charles.
Hey, Dan, I just have a question on following up to the other guy who was talking about getting the Supreme Court involved. President Reagan gave amnesty to all the illegals when he said we're going to do it one time and one time only. And since then, there's been tons of them that come across. When is either his executive order going to be abolished, or when is somebody going to be able to say, hey, we did it once, let's make a rule and make it permanent? What is the problem with America where we can't just knuckle down and do what needs to be done? I don't get it. I'm not a legal scholar. I'm a moron. I work for a living. What the heck?
Okay, Randy, thanks for the call. So it wasn't an executive order. It was the 1986 Immigration Reform Act that was compromised legislation with Congress. And yeah, it didn't go well. In terms of amnesty, I mean, that is still within both the sort of the combined purview of the president and the Congress. They can choose to act or not act. We talked about these various programs too, even those that are statutory. But you know, the devil is in the implementation. Is the H-1B visa program confined to and abiding the standards set forth in federal law? Same thing with temporary protected status, which under a President Biden becomes permanent protected status. Under a President Trump is temporary protected status, and that's being litigated too in certain circumstances for certain populations. So it's this, the president has wide and varied powers when it comes to federal immigration law enforcement, but Congress does as well. It's not plenary. Congress does have authorities as well, the keeper of the purse strings. And so you remember in term one, there was the prospect of compromise when Trump was attempting to secure funding for the border wall, and he was willing to do a deal on some sort of a path to permanent legal status for the so-called dreamers in exchange for border wall funding, adding more CBP, ICE agents, And there was no interest in that because the other side is comprised of open border absolutists, as we saw under Biden. So is there a possible deal to be done down the road? It's always possible. But there has to be stipulations, I think, to even open up negotiations, because they are about as honest as on federal immigration law as the Iranians are on nuclear weaponization. So you can't trust a word they say because you watch what they do. There would have to be a substantive concessions to strike any deal with respect to expanded legal immigration or I don't want to use the word amnesty, but some sort of pathway to permanent status for some segments of the population here illegally. You know, thresholds, 20 years, and and you pay fines and so on and so forth. I'm unwilling to have that conversation. I would be, were I president. I would be unwilling to have that conversation without specific stipulations on structural matters with respect to how we're going to do legal immigration in this country. And, you know, obviously the two sides are not talking about any of that right now. They're too busy. The other side is too busy running around demonizing ICE and CBP and calling for their abolishment and threatening to return to the Biden program if they were entrusted with the reins of power. So there's nothing to talk about at this point. There's only exercising the power you have, the legitimate power you have in furtherance of what you said you would do. And that's what the Trump administration is doing. That's what Trump is doing in particular. And Tom Homan is doing in particular at Trump's behest. Congress, a little less so. And the problem is you have Republican politicians, even in conservative states, like Kevin Stitt, the governor of Oklahoma, who's, you know, his record is mixed. He's done some good things and he says some silly things like this. He said on NPR with respect to his Democratic colleagues, you know, I'm not, you see, this is the problem with Republicans like Stitt. You'll hear it in a second, but I'll just frame it for you. I'm not pretending to look for common ground that does not exist. It is incumbent on the other side, the minority party. Oh, by the way, this just in to the Oklahoma governor, the minority party to offer their presentation of common ground by extending something to me that I would be interested to use as the basis for a conversation. While, you know, even as they run around with their, engage in their histrionics and demagoguery. You have to do something to come to me as the minority party. But that's an understanding of power that Trump possesses and Kevin Stitt doesn't.
But I will also say, you know, even my Democrat governor colleagues, they're not trying to get illegals here to turn them into voters. I don't believe that's what Democrat, politicians are trying to do. And just like Republicans get a bad rap that people think that Republicans don't like immigrants, that's not true. There's some common ground that if we can sit down together, we can figure this out.
Aren't you cute? You know, it's one of these things like we're being told now from the mouthpieces for the neo-Marxist party that the position of that party is not to abolish ICE. And Kevin Stitt's telling us the position of that party is not to allow for illegals to come into this country so they can convert them to voters. And in places that are hemorrhaging population like New York and Illinois and California, they can replace American citizens with illegals so they don't lose congressional seats and thus political power. That's exactly what's happening. And they're saying it. Kevin Stitt doesn't believe Democrats when they say it. Yvette Clarke, who's a neo-Marxist congresswoman from New York, literally said it. We need the immigrant population, and she doesn't care, illegal. We need the immigrant population to replace people in my district that are leaving. She said that in no uncertain terms. And she's not the only one. Just like on this issue of, they don't really want to abolish ICE. That's not the position of the party. It isn't? Well, you better tell, like, Pramila Jayapal, who was the band manager for the Socialist Spice Girls, where all the action is in the House on their side.
We really need to, as soon as we get the gavels back, we have to dismantle DHS and ICE and CBP. And we have to reconstruct.
Dismantle ICE and DHS and CBP. What is confusing about that statement? That Thanadar guy who looks like Munchie that we talked about yesterday up in Michigan, who's being challenged by that raving awful who is running despite a guy that broke up with her 10 years ago. That's why are you running? Because this guy broke up with me 10 years ago, and I'm going to show him. Okay. He introduced legislation to abolish ICE.
ICE is beyond reform. ICE is totally out of control. And this week, I intend to introduce a bill to abolish ICE. We need to make ICE go away.
Is there something unclear about that? Governor Stitt? I mean, come on. So the common ground with that is to what? Cut ICE by 50%? There's no middle ground, common ground. It's just them trying to demagogue you, the commonsensical person, into believing their 20% is actually 80%. I mean, this is Saul Alinsky 101. Get the majority to believe their position is the minority. And their approach to that is screeching and shaming you relentlessly. Unfortunately, it doesn't make their position true or defensible. Annie in Addison.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Do you remember the name of the book about the miracle of President Reagan's assassination attempt? You had the author on your show, and I took it out at the library, and it was very well written. My friend wants to read it, and I can't remember the name of it, and Al Gore's amazing internet won't give it to me. Well, it's true. I've got all these books about everything and about miracles, and none of it is the book. I can't remember what the name of it is.
Oh, gosh, I'm trying. There are so many books. Was it Rawhide Down?
I don't think so. I don't know, because there's two people on that Rawhide Down authors, and you had one guy on. So I don't remember, but I thought I was going to double check with the other book places, but they're all. I mean, they wrote this thing about how Reagan was a failed actor. I was laughing. It's. And can I mention one other thing with St. Patrick's Day?
You go watch King's Row and you tell me Reagan is a failed actor. Okay, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's right. But of the Medal of Honor recipients, 2021, 58% were awarded to Irish American recipients out of the 64 Medals of Honor. And I thought that should be said because a lot of people make fun of the Irish. I'm 75%
I'm one of them.
Irish.
Yeah, I'm one of them. That makes fun of them.
Yeah, they make fun about how much they drink, the paddy wagons and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought that was very interesting. My son brought that up, and I Googled it again on Al Gore's Amazing, and it came up. So I thought it was interesting to know.
No, thanks for the call, Annie. Way to wave the Irish flag, and just a couple of weeks away from St. Patrick's Day month. Of course, we had fun on the whole Southside St. Patrick's Day thing yesterday, talking to Jim Smith, one of the parade Panjan drums. Of course. But I mean, there's a lot of Irish immigrants. A lot of them went into the first responders, of course, police and fire and paramedics, and a lot of them served in the military. Not just them, but and they're a great credit to the country and all those things, except for the most part when they get into public office and then they're a disaster. I don't know what happens, but yeah. Kurt in Lamont.
Yeah, hi, Dan. Thanks for taking the call. So this whole operation with mass migration is about bringing in voters, getting them on the benefits, and creating a political support. And if it isn't addressed, you'll end up with the same situation that they just had in the UK in the Gorton and Denton by-election, where the Greens were elected. They're absolutely crazy, but they were elected based on a campaign of putting out ads in Urdu, talking about Gaza, that kind of craziness. So it's an intentional policy. It's been going on for years. Politicians love to equivocate about it. But I think most people are now seeing that it is an ongoing policy to allow mass migration.
Yeah. Thanks for the call. And it's, I mean, this is more esoteric. It's not the way to talk about it in terms of political parlance, although, you may pique some people's intellectual interest. But I mean, this is just like Cloward, Piven, internationalized, right? I mean, you stoke the Marxist revolution by getting everybody on the dole domestically. That was their grand insight. But to the extent that that's not happening, well, then import the people, particularly as they redistribute, as the productive redistribute themselves and create population and thus political power centers that don't support the ever-expanding welfare state. Well, then import people to make sure you backfill it so you don't lose political power through, American citizens choosing a different course in terms of their country's future. I mean, that's you can try to bastardize it or demonize it with the Great Replacement theory and so on and so forth. It's not about race; it's about a mentality. And so this is the point we talk about with legal immigration all the time. I don't really care what your race is. I care what your attitude is, which is to say, I'm coming here to be productive, and I can prove I'm going to be independent, and I'm going to assimilate because I know that's the way to find the greatest success in this country. And the question that we tackled last week, if my home country somehow got into a tussle with America, on whose side would I fight? And the answer better be America if you want entrance. I mean, it's so consistent with what the left likes to say, but they don't really believe America as an idea because they don't believe in the American idea. They may make references to the Constitution, but they act to undermine the principles upon which the founding documents were written with every single policy choice they promote. And that needs to be relentlessly addressed, and that needs to be pushed back with proactively on this topic. Roy and Glen Ellen.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. You mentioned the hard-hitting Chicago press corps earlier in the week, and then WGN lets go of a hard hitter like Ray Cortopassi and Sean Lewis. What the outrage on the Twitterverse.
What about that? What about that Brockman chick that that we saw her behind? Yeah.
And nobody covers a murder scene like Rona Tumulty. That was a crazy one too.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Thanks for the call, Roy. The economic reckoning that's coming to local affiliate news, as it did the daily papers, relegating them to virtual irrelevancy. Good. They're all the same anyway. David Winnetka.
Hey, good morning, Dan. So I was driving down the street the other day, and I saw a MACA bumper sticker in Highland Park. At first I thought, wow, a Republican Highland Park, that's awesome. But I thought the slogan was "Make America Kind Again." And I thought a little bit deeper and thought, wait a second, America's always been kind. She's done her part already. But the people, most of the people that live here, they need to start stepping up. They need to be the ones that are going to pitch in and make America great again. So that led me to think about the actual MAGA movement, MAGA, which probably should have been MAD, which would stand for Make American Democrats Decent.
Okay, I'm getting confused with all these acronyms flying around, but thank you, David. Kevin, Austin, Texas.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. First off, I want to say that if Pritzker was in the audience in the chamber, I don't think he would have stood up. Maybe not because he didn't disagree with it. You don't know, because I don't think he just could have gotten out of his chair.
Well, he's getting his steps in now. He's getting his steps in, so maybe.
Is he getting his steps in? All right.
Yeah.
And then two more things. First, there's a book you got to read called How the Irish Saved Civilization by Thomas Cahill.
Okay.
Great book.
Yeah. How they saved it and then 7 generations later destroyed it. But anyway, go ahead.
That's a topic for another day.
Right.
If somebody were called Ted Drowski, I'm glad you had him on, and they wanted to volunteer for his campaign. When they go on his website, hey, I want to be a volunteer. What should they expect to be done after that? Like, how much time would it cost somebody to volunteer and that type of thing? So,
I mean, like, it's whatever time you can devote. I mean, you know how campaigns are. It's to go flyer a train station in prime, commuter hours, to take a phone list and call likely Republican primary voters with a closing pitch here in the final 3 weeks, to walk a precinct doing the same thing, talk to your neighbors, send out friend-to-friend cards within your friend circles, friend and family circles. I mean, all stuff that's relatively easy to do, and it can be done virtually. You just need to engage, and then I'm sure the campaign will be put productive use to the time you have, whatever that is.
So they probably call you and say, hey, what can you do? What are your tips?
Yeah.
Have a conversation with you. Hey, would you want to do this or would you want to do that? And you do it from home. All right, cool.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Kevin, and then route you accordingly. All right. Chuck in Delavan, please don't end with references to drug use. Go ahead.
Hey, no. Hey, they got walleye at the Whiskey Ranch tonight in Delavan on Route 14. Go in the back, smoke some cigarettes, and get on them gambling machines. And make sure you plant your asparagus this week. You have to plant your asparagus.
Thank you, Chuck. I was wondering if this was time yet to plant my asparagus, and it's good to know. You're a font of knowledge. Thanks for joining us today and this week. It's now 9 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
What will Bill Clinton say about Jeffrey Epstein? I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. An hour from now, the former president will be questioned under oath by the House Oversight Committee in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation.
This is the highest profile deposition in congressional history. Never before has a former president been deposed by a House committee.
Fox's Chad Pergram is in Chappaqua, New York, where the Clintons live, and the questioning will take place like yesterday, when Hillary Clinton told lawmakers she's never met Epstein.
The former president met and even traveled with Jeffrey Epstein. Democrats believe